zwischen Rieden Gufe, oder der Ried, wo der Rebischter hat ihm ausgeklebt und hat ihm gemacht, dass soll sein der, was vereinzigt alle Jiden von dem Dor, wo das ist der Nossi-Hador, wo das wird sich noch mehr unterstrochen, was mir sich alle zusammengeklebt und nicht die, was hören das, wie es das redet sich wegen der Unionen, werden sie sich vereinzigt und hören nicht demselben Gedanke. Als ist auch der, wo der Rebischter hat ausgeklebt, als zu sein, ist sie der Reinu, wo das ist der Rebbe, der Schwer, der Baal HaGiule. Und wie Rashi sagt in dem Schabbos, welchem kommt wie der Mond früher, Hanossi hu hakel, Teres sagt, dass der Nossi vereinzigt in sich, hakel, alle Sachen, alle Jiden in der Punkt, Lehm bis Gräß, was befinden sich in sein Dor, und wie der Baal Giulo hat geschrieben, befehligt in seinem Brief, wenn geht zu der Giulo, Alei Eise Bilwad, Gol HaKadosh Baruch Hu, nur jeder Jiden und alle Jiden von sein Dor, und dann noch seine Kinder und Kindskinder, ad Seif Kol Haderis. Doch sicher verstandig, wenn geht zu ihm, auf wie viel sich stark das alles heben der Monte, unheimlich von seinem Messias Nefesh, auf jeder Jeden und auf alle Jeden, von klein bis groß, bis wann nicht als hat die Gejule, sagt als in derselben Gejule, seinen Ares, jeder Jeden und alle Jeden von dem ganzen Dor, gedeiht soll sein noch mehr verstandig und noch mehr soll das können sein, Beine Bosse, hat sich hechet übergegeben und hat geheißen verschreiben und notdrucken und befassen sein, verschiedene Takonis und befragt die Maimorim seine, die Tere seine, was in See hat gelebt und sich in See hereingelegt, a du was mit Lernen sein Tere und du was mit sich aufführen, leid seine Takonis, asher Hironu nessach selber Wort. Takone von Chumisch, Tiblim und Tani mit noch verschiedenen Takones, unheimlich von der Takone Hoikris, man soll versprechen, aber es ist Reue. Wo so die alle Sachen hört man sich und man redet wegen sie und man lebt in sie, verstärkt das noch mehr. Der Mann, wie bald als Sari Bachai, man lebt mit seinen Tieren, und mit seinen Takonis und mit seinen Schlichus, mit allen seinen Schlichus, und das Gufe im Madgisch, als Hu Bachaim, als lebt zwischen uns und noch mehr in uns und lebt in Asamin Neufen, bis wann als wird der Riker und alle übrige Unionen und Menschen werden seine Schluchim mit dem Schuss, aber wird Schluche Shalodom Kemeisi. Die Sache soll sein noch mehr verstandig und es soll sein noch mehr, man soll das können umtaten. Begashmius, in der Fahre zu Hechet, gewähren verschiedene Sachen, auf welche der Baal Giulo sich mäßig Nefesh gewähren. Zwischen sie die Sforim seine und die Ksovim seine, wo sie seine sich bechaim, Bepashtus, wo der Pfarrer der Kirche verstandig, als jeder Sefer seiner und jeder Xaviat seiner den Zugriff zu dem, was allein geschrieben oder allein sie gelernt in sie. A viele, die was haben sie gefunden in seinen Schuss. Und hat es dann noch gelost, da ist Rachman Land zu sagen, als durchgegangen nach sehr vielen Jahren, in der Fall ist geworden etwas in der Ruf Aschinoi. Am Unterschied, Adrabe, jeder Jahr wird ein Sofa in der Verbundenheit von jedem von uns mit Niside Reinu, mit dem Baal HaGiulo, jeder Jahr befragt noch eine Sekunde das Jem HaGiulo, tut man, nennt man, beschließt man und man hebt dann mit noch mehr Feier in seine Takonis und in seine Lernen, sein Teil und bekam seine Schlichius, wo der Dämmelt wird noch stärker, A viele Ledermoos, wie sie gewähnt, Sari Bachayim, Pharaonen. Ich schein dämmel gewähnt, Hu Bachayim, ist geworden noch mehr lebendiger oder da Mamosch. Und noch mehr sturmdicker oder da Mamosch. Bemehle verbindet er das Seiche zusammen mit seinen Sforim, zusammen mit seinen Ksovim, zusammen mit allen seinen Chafozim, mit den Sforim, wo selbst Meise Sibische Tier allein nicht gelernt, mehr nicht wie reingeguckt. Ob das aber gewesen sein Eigentum, Bepashtus, wie das geblieben sein an Eigentum, Art, Seif, Koladeris. Ve Adrabe, als geht durch 35 Jahre, in Rachmonelichs Land zu sorgen, als 35 Jahre, als nicht da, ist der Punkt der Heper, das Ascheker Gomor. Der Heper ist Emes von Emes Lamite, als 35 Jahre, Amidi, Schono, Beschono, wird noch mehr lebendiger und noch mehr starker, und noch mehr aktiv zwischen uns und bei uns und durch uns bei jeder Jeden und bei allen Jeden, bis in der ganzen Welt.
It's a minig by Hasidim, already from Doiris, that on the day of Hilula, we learn the Tanya in the Geras HaKodesh, Perek, Chav Zayin, and Chav Ches. And this is to understand what needs to be done, what we have to work on the day of the Hayom Hilula. The Alter Rebbe begins with the Zoya, that it says in the Holy Zoya that on the day of the Stalkus of a Tzaddik is not Chas v'Sholom the Pshat, that the Rebbe left us and he went to higher and higher madreges, but on the contrary, ishtakach bekula almin, that the tzaddik, when he leaves this world, he is more accessible and he's closer to his Hasidim even more than when he was in a physical body. And the Alter Rebbe explains that being that the Chaye HaTzadik, what was his life? His life was only Ruchnius, Avos Hashem, Yiras Hashem, being Megala Pnimius HaTorah, the Klal Yisrael. So that part of the Rebbe never left. That's the Rebbe, and that Indian of the Rebbe is with us now even more than when he was in a Guf Gashmi. Because no matter how great a tzaddik is, but the Guf is still finite, and the Guf is milim, that the tzaddik has limitations of mokai, and sometimes also zman. But when the tzaddik leaves the guf, his holy guf, he doesn't have those limitations anymore. So he could be closer to us, and we could be closer to him than even more than when he was here begashmis. This is very, very negeya to us, because Chas v'Sholom, it could come to a point that we think, oh, now we don't have this, we don't have that. We have to understand the Rebbe never left us. The Rebbe is closer to us now more than before. And he knows what's going on with us more than before. As I once heard by a Fabrengen, the Rebbe said, and he was talking about the Frierdiker Rebbe, and he said that those who were able to think that maybe they could fool the Rebbe, Frierdiker Rebbe, while he was in a guf, but everybody understands that now he can't fool him. He knows everything what's going on with us, and he's constantly mispalel for us and being ma'oira rachman for us, to a point that we have to be on our toes now, even more than before. Because everything that we do is kvayachol negeya to the Rebbe. So we could be begoyrem a tremendous nachas ruach, or chas v'sholem a heder nachas ruach. It is important to know that there's a mimer from the Frierdiker Rebbe in Tafshin Gimmel on page 75, where the Frierdiker Rebbe writes in this mimer unbelievable concepts of what the Rabbeim do in Gan Eden for the Chassidim here lamata. It's possible for everyone to look into it, and it would be a very good idea. But the Nekuda, what it says over there is that the Rabbeim have a set time in Gan Eden dedicated to help the Chassidim, to help them in their avodas Hashem, to help them in passing the nisyonis that they have. They're pashit working to help us. Their whole life while they were here was to help Klal Yisrael. The Rebbe would never for a second leave us and spend time with the Rabbeim L'mayla instead. When the Rebbe used to go to the oil and be there for hours and hours, what was he doing there? It was possible to see. It wasn't something that we had to imagine. We saw that he's reading Panim from Klal Yisrael for Hasidim, and bin ma'oira rachman. That was his whole purpose of going there, is thinking about the Hasidim and to help them in every way. That never stops, and even now more than before. So it says in that Maimon in Tafshin Gimmel that the Rabbeim are helping us to such an extent that we don't even realize of what they're doing. And if the little bit what we have is only because the Rebbe is working on us and helping us. We have to know that the Rebbe loves us b'chavlei avoisais ava. It says in this Igeres that we mentioned from the Tanya, it says there is an ava rabba that we had to the Rebbe. That ava rabba stays, and it's kemayim aponim leponim, the way we love the Rebbe, and we were attached to him the same way he is attached to us. And that is what we are supposed to do on the day of Gimmel Tammuz. We have to be ma'oira our Ava Rabbe to the Rebbe, of how much he gives of himself to each and every one of us. And that is supposed to make us, lift us up, and to realize that we have a Rebbe wherever we are. He is doing everything he can for us. But we have to be the Kalim. We have to always think, what can I do that the Rebbe should be happy from us? If he loves us so much and does so much for us, what are we doing back to the Rebbe? How are we paying back that he should have the greatest nachas from us, that we are following in the way that the Rebbe wants us to live? There's several stories that just give us a picture of how much the Rebbe does for us, and we don't even realize it. There's a story of a parent, a Lubavitcher parent, who unfortunately their child, their son, went off a little bit from Yiddishkeit, and the father went into the Rebbe and asked the Rebbe in Yiddish, Rebbe, I'm asking you, please have my child in mind. And the Rebbe replied, this is a story that I heard, and I could never forget this story. The Rebbe answered to the Chassid, you have to remind me about your son? Do you know how many tears I shed by the tzion of the Frierdiker Rebbe for your son? You can't imagine. The Chassid was stumped. The Rebbe, you have to remind the Rebbe. So just to give you a short kitzah, that when the Rebbe said that, this boy was still not yet the way he should. Over 50 years later, I was walking in front of 770, and suddenly I saw this particular Yid, who I didn't see over 50 years. And who is he now? Now he's not only a Frumme Yid, he's a Zayden, he lives a Chassidish life and has children from. This is all what the Rebbe said to the father. You have to remind me about your son. The Rebbe is saving us. The Rebbe is mispalel for us even when we don't ask. He never forgets. There's another story, but it's the same idea, that there's times that we don't even realize that the Rebbe was very interested in knowing how are you doing at this and that, and asked for different information from the Rabboim of how is this person doing, how is that person doing, and the Rebbe was already helping that person, not even realizing that the Rebbe is wondering how he's doing, and etc., etc. The love that the Rebbe has to every chassid is unbelievable. The Rebbe is our father. We don't have a better title. The Rebbe is our father who cares for our ruchnis, for our gashmis, for our nachas, for our children. The Rebbe is our gashmistic father. He cares for our gashmis, he cares for our ruchnis. Whatever we have, it's thanks to the Rebbe. There's nothing that we have on our own. The Rebbe once said to a chassid that in Chabad, not only the ruchnis comes from the Rebbe, but even the gashmis has to come through the Rebbe. Everything we have, the gesund, the parnasse, the mishpacha, is only because of the Rebbe. So the Torah says, Kamayim haponim el ponim. We have to be ma'oira b'chlal from time to time, and especially on Gimmel Tammuz. Gimmel Tammuz represents the skashris, what we have, that the Rebbe is with us. And with us with the greatest love. B'chavlei avoisos ava. He loves us to pieces. Like the Alter Rebbe in Tanya, when he talks about Kamayim Aponim El Ponim, and he speaks about the Yidden and the Eibishter, how much the Eibishter loves us. And he talks about Yitzias Mitzrayim, that the Eibishter went all the way down to the dumps when we were in Ervas Haaretz. We were in the slums. And the father goes to the place where the son is in the ashpa. He lowers himself to find him in the gutter, and he takes him all the way to his own cheder in his own palace, and he hugs him and kisses him. These are the words from the Alter Rebbe in the Mashal, and in the Nimshal. Torah in mitzvahs is Hashem's hugging us and kissing us. This is the Rebbe. The Rebbe loves us even when we are in the dumps. Who goes down to save us when we are chas v'sholem not exactly the way we should? The Rebbe's love to us is unconditional. And he comes to us and he takes us and schleps us out and brings him as close as possible to him. On the day of Gimmel Tammuz, where the tzaddik is oile from one level to another level, this is the day that the tzaddik has the greatest aliyah. The Rebbe doesn't have an aliyah by himself. He takes us along with him, and he won't go up unless he's sure that everyone is holding on and he's taking us with him. So b'meila, we're supposed to take from Gimmel Tammuz the greatest hischaskus, Poshet, the love that the Rebbe loves us like a father and cares for us. There's no one who cares for us more than the Rebbe. And he's always mispalel for us, even before we ask him to intervene and to be ma'ira rachman. But for sure, when we ask him, it's for sure. But the nekuda is that we're supposed to take from Gimmel Tammuz a tremendous feeling of love, how much we are loved by the Rebbe, and how much he cares for us. And on this day, he's mispalel for us, that we should have hatzlacha in everything that we do, and we should bring Mashiach, each and every chassid, on his level, his chelik, that he should do and be memale his shlichus. The Rebbe always asked us, when it's a Yom T'Pagah or when it's any time, it has to come out our Inyan B'Poil. Just to be Nesoira, it's not enough. The Nesoiras has to later translate in Poil Mamish. The Rebbe never, he was always wanted to know what happened, what came out of the Nesoiras. What's the peiros? We have to make a cheshbon today. What am I bringing to the Rebbe this coming year? What am I adding in my Torah and my mitzvahs, and what am I adding in Afatzas Hayados and Afatzas Mayonis more than I did till now? That is the greatest nachas that we could give to the Rebbe. So the Rebbe is looking, the Rebbe is watching, like it says in the Tanya, when it speaks about Vehine Hashem Nitzav Olav and Perek Mem Aleph. There's an amazing word in that line. Vehine Hashem Nitzav Olav, you could learn, of course, it means that the Eibush is always watching. The Alter Rebbe says, no, not only is he watching, Mabit, he's steering. So what is he steering? Are we doing the right thing? No. The Alter Rebbe says something mind-boggling. What is Hashem watching and steering at us? Im oivdai karoi. Are you doing the way you should? Are you totally devoted? So this is the same goes Tzadikim doimim lebayram. If the Rebbe a whole day and a whole night is looking and steering at us, not just if we're doing the mitzvahs, but the Rebbe cares, how are you doing it? Are you for real? Are you doing this with lip service or you mean it? And that's Kayochel very Nigei L'mayla. Im Oivdai Karoi. The Shulchan Aruch starts with Shavisi Hashem L'negdi Summit. Eibush is right here, but it doesn't say such strong words as it says in the Tanya. Not only is the Eibush here, and he's all over, and he's looking at me, he's steering. And not only is he steering, what is he really steering about? Are you doing this karoi? Are you doing mitzvahs karoi? The same goes with the Rebbe. Gimmel Tammuz, and every day, but especially Gimmel Tammuz, the Eibishter and the Rebbe looking at us. Are you really for real? Are you planning to change and to add and to make an ibekanish in your life? That's what's going to make the Rebbe nachas. So you're just going to go through them and hug him and do everything and go back to your own life like it was till now. That's not going to make it. What's going to make it is what are you planning to do today? The Rebbe sees this and feels it and knows it. What are you promising the Rebbe with your whole heart that the Rebbe should have nachas? So the Eibusher should bench us all, that we should use this day out to the maximum, to make a cheshbon nefesh and to give ourselves over to the Rebbe with the greatest love. And then is kamayim aponim leponim, the Rebbe will bench us and give us meyodai amleya apsucha hagedoisha. The Rebbe will give us all the brachas that we need. Bone chayim zoyne revicha.
do a summary of the Maimer. We'll try to cover as much as we can within the hour, at least most of the Nekudas of the Maimer. Not necessarily according to the whole structure of the Maimer, but just at least the points of the Maimer. So the pasuk, the Maimer starts. The pasuk is V'atat Tzavez Bnei Yisrael. The Moshe Rabbeinu will command Yidden, V'yikchu Elech Hashem and Zayizach, and they will bring to Moshe Rabbeinu clear olive oil. Kosis will be crushed. Lamoir for the candle, for the source of light. Lahalis near Tamid, in order for there to be and to light the menorah that should light constantly. And the Rebbe asked several questions on this. Number one, that the lashon that Torah uses here, Va'atat Tzavez Bnei Yisrael, is not the ordinary lashon that Torah, not the regular lashon that Torah uses. Usually, the expression that Torah uses when Hashem tells Moshe to give over a tzivah to Yidden, the lashon is Tzavez Bnei Yisrael, Dabra Bnei Yisrael. Which just lashon indicates that the tzivah, the mitzvah, the one that gave us the commandment, is Hashem. It's Hashem's commandment. Moshe Rabbeinu is just Daber Bnei Yisrael. He gives over the command. He communicates this commandment to Yidden. He gives it over to Yidden. Here, the lashon of the Torah is Va'atat Tzaveh, that you will command. So the mashma says that Moshe is the one which is commanding. That's the Chora Moshe. The tzivah is the Eibusher's tzivah, and he's giving it over to Yidden. Second question is, the pasuk says that Yidden should bring the oil to Moshe. Question is, the Chora Arnakain is the one that's mekayim the mitzvah of Lagasan Eretz. So what was the purpose that Yidden should bring the oil to Moshe Rabbeinu? You don't find any other mitzvah that there's a necessity. It's necessary to bring the object of the mitzvah to Moshe Rabbeinu. The third question is that the pasuk says causes to have oil, crushed oil for the mar, for the source of light. And the lashon, which the appropriate lashon should have been shem and lahir, they need oil for the sake of shedding light, for there to be light, not for the source of light, for the illuminary. Another question is, it says in this, there's seemingly a contradiction. In this pasuk it says that the menorah should be kindled constantly, lahalis ner tamid. And in the pasuk right after this, it says me'erev ad beker, that the menorah is lit and should be kindled from the night to the morning. So it's not lit constantly, but just in the evening and just for the night. These are the questions. The Rebbe brings the Fidikas Nevar, the Nekudi Fidikas Nevar, the Ma'amar B'Kibbul HaYehudim, which he said Purim Katan Tafish B'Zayin, and there he explains the inner meaning of the words Tetzaveh. That the tzaveh, the literal meaning is commanded. The inner meaning is that Moshe Rabbeinu is going to connect. Tzavse v'chibur is going to connect. He's going to attach. So Moshe Rabbeinu's role is V'atat Tzaveh Bnei Yisrael. The Moshe Rabbeinu's role is to attach Yidden with Eretz, to attach Yidden to Elokus. And through Moshe being mashpia and a Yid and attaching him to Elokus, that also brings a Yisaf and a Yisr and adds an additional light, an additional energy in Moshe Rabbeinu himself. Like the pasuk says, the Moshe Rabbeinu is Moshe Rabbeinu is taka mashpia and a Yid, like the head which is mashpia on the entire body. But there's also an addition which is added to Moshe Rabbeinu through Yiddim, which are considered like the feet of Moshe. The same way the feet bring a certain mile to the head, they bring the head to a place where the head on his own can't get there. So through the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu is mashpia and a Yid, that in itself. Yidden add a new haysaf, a new addition, and a higher light in Moshe Rabbeinu himself, and namely, which is the gili of Atzmos, the gili of Anoichi. Now, to explain this more in detail, first of all, what's Moshe Rabbeinu's role of connecting Yid to the Eibishter, and also the addition that Bnei Yisrael bring in Moshe Rabbeinu, the additional light that Yidden add in Moshe Rabbeinu. So the Rebbe starts off with what the Fidik is Meirich and his Mavar Baruch elaborates in the Ma'amar B'Kibbul HaYehudim. Now, in the Ma'amar B'Kibbul HaYehudim, there's seemingly two distinct points which have no connection one to another, and the Rebbe is going to explain how they're essentially connected. So the first point the Fidik Rebbe explains is the role of Moshe Rabbeinu, the Va'atat Tzaveh, Moshe Rabbeinu's role, which is, it brings what it says in Zohar, that Moshe Rabbeinu is called Ra'im Mehemna. So there's one basic meaning that Ra'im Mehemna means he's a faithful shepherd. That he doesn't elaborate about that meaning in this Maimer. What he's married in this Maimer is the second touch of Ra'im Mehemna. The Moshe Rabbeinu, Ra'im Mehemna means that he nurtures Yidden with Emunah. What do you need Moshe Rabbeinu is nurturing? Why do you need his ashpa for Emunah? Every Yid is inherently Ma'aminim B'nei Ma'aminim. Every Yid believes in Hashem. He has a neshama which so why do you need the ashpa of Moshe Rabbeinu? So he explains that the emunah that a Yid has could be in a eifin of market. Moshe Rabbeinu's ashpa is that this emunah should be in the pnimius, should be internalized. Means from the nature of the emunah itself, without the ashpa of Moshe Rabbeinu, so it's not necessarily that the emunah plays a central factor and guides a person in his life. It doesn't necessarily change a person's life internally. Doesn't change the way he views things, doesn't change the way his emotional attitude towards things. he has within his soul a certain certainty or a certain belief in Hashem, but that's in a sense removed from the person himself, from his own life itself. The emunah doesn't necessarily is not a factor which changes and makes an imprint on a person's life internally. Moshe Rabbeinu's hashpah is that this emunah should be effective on a yid in a primistic way. And a primistic way means that it should actually change the way he views things, the way he understands things, the way his emotional attitude towards things. This mamshach emunah in a primistic way that it should have a real effect on a person's and be internalized in a person's life. That's Ra'im Emne. He nurtures a yid with emunah, that he brings this emunah and he makes it part of the flesh and blood of the person, part of the life of the person. Brings it down in a primis. And the Rebbe brings is not only Moshe Rabbeinu himself, but also the Zohar says it's Pashtus the Moshe b'chol dara v'dara. In every generation there's a Moshe Rabbeinu, which his tafkid is to take that the emunah that a yid has shouldn't just stay in a removed way, higher than and doesn't necessarily have an effect on a person's daily life, but the emunah should have an internal effect on a person. And he brings an example that Adaras that you have when you get to Mordechai Yehudi, that in his generation, the Mekayim Torah and Mitzvahs was connected to Mesiras Nefesh. There was many hardships in Mekayim Torah and Mitzvahs. The Gzeira of Hama was only against Yidden, which held on to their belief in Hashem. And Mordechai Yehudi, he was the one which was Ma'erer Yidden, and he strengthened their emunah, that their emunah should have an effect on their daily life to stand strong, although all the halamas that there was then and the hardships that there were then, to keep Torah and mitzvahs, but to stand strong with self-sacrifice, with Mesiras Nefesh, to learn Torah and to Mekayim mitzvahs. And the Rebbe elaborates on the extent of Mordechai Yehudi's effect on his generation, how not only Yidden didn't entertain the thought of Kfirah, Rahman al-Islam, but he actually strengthened learning Torah on a higher level, learning Torah by Rabbim, learning Torah with Bikras. That was all thanks to the hashpah of Mordechai Yehudi, to the Moshe Rabbeinu of his generation, which strengthened the emunah of the Yidden, that it should have an effect, an internal effect, and change the way Yidden actually live. They should live their life practically based on the emunah. That's Moshe Rabbeinu's tafkid. So that explains the inyan of Atid Tzaveh, that what's Moshe Rabbeinu's hashpah? What does it mean that he attaches a Yid with the Elikos? That Moshe Rabbeinu's hashpah is that the emunah that a Yid has in the Elikos should actually affect and be a factor in his life. In his life. That's one point the Rebbe explains the Maimer. Another point the Rebbe explains in the Maimer is the Maila of the Aveda of Zman HaGolus. Rebbe discusses there. The pasuk says the Gimmel Yehudim Shechelu Lasis. He brings the Taich that what does it mean that Yidden accepted upon themselves what they began doing. So it says that B'matan Torah Yidden said Nasa v'Nishma, they accepted upon themselves Torah and Mitzvahs. That was just the beginning of Yidden's commitment to Torah and Mitzvahs. When was the complete and full commitment, the ultimate commitment to Torah and Mitzvahs? That was dafke by this man of Purim. And the Rebbe explains here that's something which is hard to understand. When was the time that Yidden were in the highest? When were Yidden in the highest level, in the highest state? That was the Zman of Matan Torah. After they saw the revelations of Tzias Mitzrayim and Kriyas Yansuf, there's a revelation of the Eibishter himself through the miraculous nisim that there was. Then Matan Torah, there was no greater revelation by Yidden the way it was in Matan Torah at that time. Mashenkin is man of Purim, is man of Gzeira Saman. That was Yidden were in the lowest state in the spiritual sense. There was also in the Gashmis, there was Halamas Vesteden, there was hardships. Godliness was not revealed. It was Gzeiris. It was a very strong concealment and hardships in Mekayim Torah mitzvahs. And nevertheless, when Yidden were in their highest state in a spiritual sense, they were the greatest closeness to Hashem and the highest level of revelation of Elikos, of Gilui Elikos. Then that was only the beginning of their commitment. That was just the initial beginning. When did they actually complete and fully accept upon themselves the kiyum of Torah mitzvahs? That was dafka when Yidden were in the lowest state, in their lowest element, and there was this man of Purim. That's the people said that's a pella. And he explains that the Maila that there was Bisman Purim was that Yidden had Mesiras Nefesh. They had to have self-sacrifice, give their life. They were Mekayim Torah mitzvahs even at the expense of giving away their life. And that quality they did not have. That wasn't brought out from Matan Torah. The key being Mekabel Torah mitzvahs didn't demand self-sacrifice. Didn't demand a person giving away his whole self for it. On the contrary, that was revealed to them the greatness of Elikos. Mashenkim is man Purim, where there was hardships and there was Gzeiris, and in order for you to stay connected to Torah mitzvahs, they had to give their life away for Torah mitzvahs. So there, that Mr. Snefesh of Torah mitzvahs in the most greatest level. So that brought them to that was the ultimate commitment that Yidden have towards the Eibishter, a commitment which is unconditional. That a Yid is ready to sacrifice his life for the sake of doing what the Eibishter wants. that Eresh was Nizgala, that emerged in the Zman of Purim, the Zman of the Gzeira Salma, which then came out to the mitzvahs, demanded Mesiras Nefesh. So the Rebbe says that's the explanation why the ultimate Kabbalah, the ultimate and complete commitment that a Yidden accepted upon themselves, their connection to the Eibishter, their dedication to the Eibishter, that was by Zman of Purim, not by Matan Torah, because in the sense of self-sacrifice towards the Eibishter, in the sense of that your connection, the dedication to Elokus is an unconditional connection, even at the expense of giving away your life, that Indian was Nizgala and came to its Nizgala by Zman of Purim. And that's what the Rebbe explains. That's what the Pasuk says, Chosis Lamot, that when Yidden are crushed, and then they're in order for them to fulfill Torah and mitzvahs, it demands self-sacrifice. It demands giving their life away for the sake of keeping Torah and mitzvahs. Their causes, they're crushed. So then that brings out the essence of Yid. That brings out, that expresses, and that reveals the etzem and neshama of a Yid, the essence and the core of a Jew. That his connection to Elokus is beyond any limitations. He's ready to give his life away for the sake of nature. That's Chosis Lamar. That when is it revealed? The Mar, the source of the light, the source of the soul, the essence of the soul, the core of the neshama. That's Nizgala through it in a time of Chosis, in a time when Yidden need Mesiras Nefesh and Mekayim Torah mitzvahs. So L'chura in the Maimer of the Rebbe we have two points in the Maimer. Number one, he explains the Hashpa of Moshe Rabbeinu's Adat Tzavis Neisros to attach Yidden to the Eibishter. They're being Mamshech the Emunah B'Pnimis. And then we have another explanation. What does Chosis Lamar mean? Why that in a time of Chosis, in a time where there's hardship in the Mekayim Torah mitzvahs, that is Megala, the Etzem Neshama, because then you need to be Mekayim Torah mitzvahs inside Mesiras Nefesh. The question is, what's the connection between these two inyanim? And the Mashmas in the Maimer is that the Biur Habazman Agolis through Mesiras Nefesh, the Etzem Neshama is revealed. That is connected and comes in continuation to the idea that Moshe Rabbeinu connects Yid with the Eibishter. So that's what we have to understand. And here the Rebbe, in order to explain this, the Rebbe gives goes in to explain what is the reason why the Emunah, the way a Yid has it inherently, the way it is naturally without the effect of Moshe Rabbeinu, is in a more removed way. That affects that Yid's Emunah should be in a primis. What's the reason for it? And he explains that the Emunah that a Yid has, the fact that a Yid believes in the Eibishter, has a certainty in Elokus, and it doesn't need any proof. It doesn't have to be proven the fact that there's a Elokus. Doesn't need any rationale for the fact that there's a Elokus. A Yid has an inherent certainty, an inherent faith in Hashem. Now, the source of this faith, there's two explanations. Number one is because you have the neshama, before the neshama came down into the body, you have the way the neshama is in higher worlds, and the higher level of the neshama. And there the neshama has a direct vision of Elokus. Mazlechaz, the source of the neshama Lamayla has a vision, sees Elokus. That's a direct contact with Elokus. So therefore, the person, when the neshama is mlubash in the guf, the person doesn't experience this vision. The person in a body doesn't see godliness. The neshama sees godliness. But since the neshama shalamayla is connected, there's some connection between the neshama shalamayla with the neshama which comes down to the body. So the result of the fact that the neshama sees Elokus, that affects that the person here in this room, when the neshama is mlubash in the guf, he has a certainty in godliness, even though the experience of seeing Elokus itself, that the person down here doesn't experience it. But the result of that experience, the result of the fact that the neshama sees Elokus, so that is effective on the neshama mlubash beguf, that he doesn't need any proof for the fact that there's Elokus. He has faith in it, he has certainty in it without a proof, because the neshama, the way it is in higher worlds, has a direct vision, has a direct Elokus is seen to the neshama. That's one explanation. Where is the source of the fact that a Yid has a munah in Elokus? Another explanation is that the reason why a Yid believes in the Eibishter and has faith in Elokus without needing any proof for it is because the faith in Hashem, being connected to Hashem, that is the very core, that is the very essence of a neshama. It's not that the neshama is this independent entity which experiences godliness, which has great experiences of God, sees godliness. But the neshama in its very core, what is the essence of the soul? The essence of the soul is connection with God, unity with God. Since that's the essence of the soul, therefore a Yid doesn't need proof for the fact that there's Elokus, because that's his very essence, that's his very core. His very core is connection to Hashem, unity with Hashem. Now the Rebbe explains that there's two differences. The emunah, the way it comes from the fact that the neshama shalamayla sees Elokus, and the emunah which originates in the fact that the neshama by its very essence is connection with Hashem. There's two differences that come out of the way the emunah is affected on the person down here in this world. When the source of the emunah of a yid is, because the neshama shalamayla, his neshama the way it is in higher levels, sees a lukus. So then the neshama shalamayla is in a higher realm, in a higher plane of being than the neshama the way it is in lubush and guf. The neshama the way it is in lubush and guf is in a state that it has some contact with the world of the guf. It's not on the same level as the neshama the way it is higher than being lubush and guf. That's in a much more spiritual and elevated state. And therefore, since the source of the emunah is from the neshama the way it is on a higher level, on a higher than the neshama the way it is in lubush and guf, so its effect on the person is a more external effect, a more removed effect, because the source of the emunah is from a level of the neshama the way it's removed and higher than the neshama which is in lubush and guf. And therefore, its effect on the person is also as something outside of him which affects him. It's not him himself. It's higher than him. And therefore, the emunah is going to be in a market to go away. It's not going to have an internal imprint. It's not going to have an effect on a person's life because it originates in an experience which is higher than the person himself. When you speak about the fact that the emunah stems from the idea that the neshama is one with God, its core is godliness. So the etzem of the neshama, the essence of the soul, the core of the soul is not just the core. It's not just another level of the neshama. That is the core that from there stems all levels of the neshama. The neshama, the way it comes down in the body, that's the core of that level, the source of that level, and its essence is the etzem neshama himself, the core of the soul, which is one with God. So the emunah, the way it originates in the etzem of the neshama, that's not just as something removed. That's not that there's something removed affecting the person. That is that his own very essence, his own core, affects him. When a person's own core affects it, so that's not an external effect. That's not a removed effect. That gives the person the feeling that godliness is something which that's what his life is built up. So so how is it that Moshe Rabbeinu has the ability to affect that godliness and belief in God should be something which should affect a person in an internal way, should affect his mind and affect his heart? That's because he reveals the emunah the way it originates in the etzem of the neshama, the way it is from the very essence and the core of a yid's being, and from that respect, belief in Hashem, connection to Hashem, is a person's very inner being. That's his very core, and therefore that gives the person the ability that it should have an effect on his very life, on his way of understanding and his way of feeling. So that's one difference that there is when the difference between if the emunah and the neshama comes from the fact that the neshama has from the higher levels of the soul, or it comes from the very essence and the core of the soul. That when it comes from the neshama shalmaila, which sees, since the neshama shalmaila is higher than the neshama melubush beguf, so its effect is as something higher affecting something lower, and then the higher always stays removed, and the effect is removed. The fact that the emunah comes from the etzem neshama, that's something within you affecting you. So that gives you the ability that the connection to Hashem should be something which should actually internalize by you and should affect your way of understanding and your way of living. That's number one. Number two, that also another point difference that the Rebbe brings out is that if the source of the fact that a yid has faith in Hashem, a yid's connection to Hashem comes from that the neshama which is higher than being melubush and guf, sees godliness. So that doesn't necessarily bring about that a yid's going to be ready to give away his whole life, give away his whole self for the sake of Hashem, for the sake of this emunah, for this faith. Now, the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya that the Mesiras Nefesh that a yid has doesn't come from the fact that a yid has such strong certainty in godliness, such a strong certainty, and therefore he's so involved intellectually with this connection that he gives away everything for this connection. The Alter Rebbe says that a yid's Mesiras Nefesh, even simple yid were Mesiras Nefesh, and the source of the Mesiras Nefesh was because a yid cannot detach himself from the Eibush. So Mesiras Nefesh comes from the fact that a yid gives his life away for Hashem is because it comes from this feeling that elikus, godliness, that's his very essence. That's really who he is. And therefore, if that's who he is, there's no way that he could give it up. There's no way that he could detach himself from it. So if the emunah stems from the fact that he's connected to Hashem, stems from the fact that his neshama shalamayla has this lofty godly experience. So at the end of the day, it's an experience, it's a vision. But the neshama itself is an entity for itself, which has a vision of godliness. Then that connection can be detached. And a person won't necessarily give away his whole life for the sake of Hashem. You won't have this feeling that he can't detach himself from godliness. But when the emunah stems from the fact that he is connected to Hashem, stems from the very essence of his neshama, then his very essence means that that's who he is. That's his core. His core is connected to God. When a Yid feels that that's his core, he cannot, from that aspect, he cannot detach himself from Hashem. Because being connected to Hashem, that is what he is. And therefore he can't detach himself from it, because that is his very being. So we have two differences. And the difference is the way the neshama affects, the way the emunah affects the person. If the emunah stems from the fact that the neshama experiences God, it sees God, or the emunah comes from the etzem neshama, the core of the soul, which its very core is connection to God. Number one, when the emunah stems from the fact that the neshama sees godliness, has a more removed type of effect on the person. It doesn't change him internally. When the emunah stems from the fact that that's your very core, so it has an internal effect on the person. It changes his actual life. Number two, when the emunah comes from the fact that the neshama experiences God, so the experience of God, that doesn't mean that its essence is being connected to God. Then it could be detached. So that won't demand the idea of Mesiras Nefesh. Mesiras Nefesh comes from the Yid senses that he cannot detach himself from God. That comes from the fact that a Yid and godliness are really one. Connection to Elokus, that's a Yid's essence. And therefore he can't deny his connection to Hashem. Now according to this, the Rebbe explains seeming certain shverikite that there is in what the Friedrich explains in the Maimer. Friedrich says in the Maimer that the tafkid of Moshe Rabbeinu is Ra'im Mehemne to Mamshech Emunah B'Pnimis. Now, the way it was for Moshe Rabbeinu himself, Moshe Rabbeinu's tafkid was to be Mamshech Das Navakus, that the faith in Hashem should have an effect on the way a Yid understands, the way the way he views things, the way he feels things. So that's what does it mean that it's Mamshech Emunah B'Pnimis? That it has a literal impact on his very life, on his attitude, on his way of understanding. That's when it comes to Moshe Rabbeinu himself. The Friedrich Rebbe explains how in later generations the tafkid of Bnei Yisrael was to strengthen the Yid's emunah to Mamshech Pnimis. He brings an example of Mordechai Yehudi. When Mordechai Yehudi, what his effect was not necessarily in giving Yidden an understanding of godliness, bringing that the emunah should be something which should affect them, affect their understanding, and affect their attitude towards things. Figure brings out that through the Hashvi'i of Moshe, when Yidden had Mesiras Nefesh, they had self-sacrifice. They gave their life away for Elokus. So that l'chura is not Moshe Rabbeinu's job was to give Yidden an understanding and to internalize in an internalized way your faith in Hashem. And Mordechai Yehudi's Hashvi'i was that Yidden should have Mesiras Nefesh, self-sacrifice. That's not an idea of understanding or a higher feeling towards Elokus or a deeper understanding of Elokus. But it is that a Yid should be ready to give away his life for the sake of Hashem. That's the two different hashpais, two different tinyanim. Mesiras Nefesh are giving Yidden hasagin Elokus, das and Elokus. But according to what we explained earlier, the Rebbe explains like this: the essence of Moshe Rabbeinu is the lashon of the Zayir is Moshe Rabbeinu is Ra'im Mehemne. Till now we tie it. Ra'im Mehemne means that he nurtures Yidden with emunah. Here the Rebbe says the literal meaning of Ra'im Mehemne is that he nurtures his raya the emunah itself. What does it mean his raya the emunah itself? So according to the way we understood earlier, it's understood. Every Yid has emunah in Hashem. The question is where the emunah stems from, where it originates from. Moshe Rabbeinu's tafkid was that the emunah should originate from the deeper essence of a Yid, from the very core of a Yid. That's Moshe Rabbeinu's main goal. That the essence of a Yid should emerge and should be revealed and should be affected, should be active. The emunah, the way Yid has naturally without Moshe Rabbeinu's Hashvi'i, is from the higher levels of the soul, from the neshama shalamayla, but not necessarily from a Jew's essence, from a Yid's core. Moshe Rabbeinu's tafkid is to nurture the emunah, that the emunah should stem and should be revealed from its very essence, from the essence of the Yid's neshama. Now, what's the result of revealing the way it is mitzad the etzem of the neshama? The result is in two ways. So the main tafkid of Moshe Rabbeinu is to reveal that the emunah should originate the way it is inside the etzem of a Yid. How does that affect a person practically? How does it look when the emunah doesn't only stem from the neshama shalamayla, but it stems from the etzem? There could be two various ways how the effect of the etzem is going to make a change. One difference is that when the emunah stems from a person's etzem, that's your core. That gives the person the ability to actually internalize godliness, to internalize Elokus. You should comprehend it. You should understand it. You should view things that way based on that emunah, because the emunah is his very essence, his very core. So that's not something outside of him affecting him, but it's something within him himself. So that's one effect of Moshe Rabbeinu, and that was Moshe Rabbeinu himself. The tafkid was to megal the etzem neshama. And what did it play itself out in? What was the effect? What was the result of being megal the etzem neshama? That a Yidden had das and Elokus. Mordechai Yehudi's job was also the same thing. He was being megala the emunah that it should stem. He was being mefarnes the emunah itself. He was nurturing the emunah itself that it should stem from a deeper place of Yid, from the essence of Yid. What was the result of Moshe Rabbeinu's days? That mitzad the fact that he was megala the emunah the way it is inside the essence of a Yid, inside the etzem of a Yid, Yidden had Mesiras Nefesh. They gave their life away. They felt that they cannot detach themselves from a Elokus. So in essence, Moshe Rabbeinu and Mordechai Yehudi, all Moshe, the Moshe Rabbeinu of every generation, his tafkid is that the emunah should stem not from great higher levels of the soul, but the emunah should stem from the very essence, the very core of a Yid's being. The result of that could be many different results. There's one result that as a result of the fact that the emunah comes from etzem neshama, a Yid's understanding changes. And that's Moshe Rabbeinu. Another result is that a Yid is ready to give away his life for the sake of Torah. He cannot detach himself from Elokus, which that is Mordechai Yehudi's effect. Oh. So the Rebbe says, according to this, we can understand the connection between the Frierdiker Rebbe's explanation, Kosis Lamar, and what he explains, V'adat Tzavas Bnei Yisrael. When the Frierdiker Rebbe says in the Maimer that in a time of Kosis, in a time where Yidden are crushed, so that is Megala the Etzem HaNeshama, that's not just a separate idea, not relevant, not associated with the idea of V'adat Tzavas Moshe Rabbeinu Zashpah. That's all in continuation. That's all coming behemshach to speaking about what the tafkid of Moshe Rabbeinu the Raya Mehemna is. The Frierdiker Rebbe is saying the Moshe Rabbeinu's Indian is V'adat Tzavas Bnei Yisrael is to attach a Yid to the Elokus. What does it mean to attach a Yid with the Yivishter? That a Yid's connection to Elokus should stem from his essence. That his very essence is oneness with Hashem. Kosis Lamar is that this hashpah of Moshe Rabbeinu is hashpah, that a Yid's emunah should stem from his etzem, that's revealed in a much stronger way, in a much clearer way, in a much more apparent way, through in a time of Kosis where Yidden need Mesiras Nefesh. And then the result of Moshe Rabbeinu is being megal the etzem HaNeshama, results itself in giving away your life for the sake of the Eibishter, in the sense that you cannot detach yourself. That reveals the etzem in a much stronger way. Why does it reveal the etzem in a much stronger way? So the Rebbe explains that when it comes to Moshe Rabbeinu himself, at the end of the day, what was apparent was Moshe Rabbeinu was doing melamed das in Israel. He was giving them understanding. He was giving them that it should change their external self. They should have a different view. Their view should be based according to Elokus. They should have das in Elokus. They should have hargasha in Elokus. So what's apparent is not the etzem itself. The etzem itself is that its essence is oneness with Hashem. That's not seen in Moshe Rabbeinu's hashpah. How is it that he's able to affect, that a Yid should be able to actually comprehend godliness, that he should actually feel that godliness is something which he is able to connect to in an internal way? It stems from the fact that a Yid, the etzem, is one with Hashem. But that oneness with Hashem is not revealed on the surface of the fact that he understands Hashem. What's seen is that he has an understanding in godliness, that he feels kaviyachol comfortable with godliness, but not that he's one with Hashem, that his core is godliness. The fact that he's able to understand the Elokus is because his emunah is his etzem. Mashiki through Mordechai Yehudi Mesiras Nefesh is an open expression of the etzem HaNeshama. Because what's the sense of Mesiras Nefesh? The feeling of Mesiras Nefesh is that I cannot detach myself from God. That is a revelation. That's an expression. That's the hisgalus of the etzem HaNeshama. The etzem HaNeshama is that God, that its connection to Hashem. That's its very being. What is the core of the neshama? It's oneness with Hashem, and that is what is felt. That is what is openly apparent when it comes to Mesiras Nefesh. That I cannot detach myself from Elokus. That a Yid with Elokus is one thing. So therefore, Kosis Lamar, the fact that in a time when a Yidden were a Shverikite, and they needed Mesiras Nefesh, that brought out the Mohus of Moshe of Raya Mehemna in a much more open and apparent way. So Kosis Lamar comes behemshach to V'atat Tzavas. Oh. Now the Rebbe adds another point that when was it that the entire Klal Yisrael had Mesiras Nefesh? That was in the time of Purim. Even in the time of Hanukkah, that wasn't the entire Klal Yisrael. When was there the only time that the entire Klal Yisrael was had Mesiras Nefesh for the sake of Torah and mitzvahs? That was in the time of the Purim, and that's why it says that Mordechai. The Rebbe explains that's also maybe what it says in Medrash, that Mordechai b'Doire is equal is shokol like Moshe b'Doire. The Gemara says is pashtush Moshe b'chol dor b'Doire. Every dor has a Moshe. So why are we specifying that Mordechai is equal to Moshe? So the Rebbe says the uniqueness of Moshe Rabbeinu was not only that he was the Raya Mehemna, but his effect as the Raya Mehemna was open and apparent to the entire generation. He actually affected in a revealed way the entire generation. The fact that he was a Raya, the fact that he nurtured Yidden, wasn't in a concealed way, but it had an open effect on his entire generation. The entire generation is called a Der Deya. He changed them in a revealed and open way. And al der's was negate to Mordechai Yehudi that his effect as a Raya Mehemna had a revealed an apparent effect on his entire generation, that the entire generation stood in a mode of Mesiras Nefesh. And the Rebbe says in the Maimer that the fact that the Frierdiker Rebbe brings this in the Maimer is because Pasek Val Maimer Sedin Al Atzmei. When a Rebbe says something about another Rebbe, so that is also like the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, so that is he's saying and he's bringing out also when he gets himself Pasek Adin Al Atzmei, that he was also the Rai Mehemna, not just in a concealed way but in a revealed way for all people of his generation. So that's one point in the Maimer. But there's still something which has to be understood. According to this explanation, when we're dealing with the pasuk V'atet Tzaveh, so the pasuk says like this: V'atet Tzaveh is Bnei Yisrael v'ikcholech Hashem and Zayizach Choshes Lamar. So the way we understand it till now is that V'atet Tzaveh is Bnei Yisrael is a Moshe Rabbeinu attaches a Yid Telukus, that it brings that the Yid's really in essence one with godliness. And then Choshes Lamar is a continuation to Moshe Rabbeinu's attachment that Moshe Rabbeinu affects. That when Moshe Rabbeinu affects the attachment in a time of Choshes, in a time of when there's Gzeiris, so then that brings out the etzem, that brings out the mar in a much more revealed and apparent way. But if so, the words Choshes Lamar should have been before V'yikwela. The pasuk says that V'atet Tzaveh Bnei Yisrael, that Yidden are going to, that Moshe Rabbeinu attaches the Yidden and they bring oil. Then when do we bring out V'atet Tzaveh Bnei Yisrael? When does the pasuk says? When does the pasuk say that they're going to bring crushed oil? It says that Yidden are going to bring crushed oil. So Mashma says that the inyan of Choshes Lamar is not mitzad Moshe Rabbeinu's Hashvi'i itself, but it's something which that's what Yidden bring. That comes from Yidden's Aved. The Bnei Yisrael, the reverence in the beginning of the Maimer that the Frierdiker Rebbe says, what's that Hashvi'i Hashem and Zayizach? That La'achle Moshe Rabbeinu's Hashvi'i and a Yid, that a Yid also affects a higher face-bis an additional energy in Moshe Rabbeinu himself. So according to the Rebbe explained till now, Kos is the fact that Yidden had Mesiras Nefesh, that didn't result from Yidden, that resulted from Mordechai Yehudi, that resulted from Moshe Rabbeinu. So the Choshes Lamar didn't stem from Bnei Yisrael; it stemmed from Moshe Rabbeinu. It stemmed from the Nasi, from the Pashtus of the Moshe, from Mordechai Yehudi. For the pasuk is mashma that the Choshes Lamar, the crushing is which brings out the mar, that comes from a Yid, that comes from Bnei Yisrael. That's from the additional energy which is added through a Yid's Aved. So this you have to understand. According to the way we understand the Indian till now, the Choshes Lamar also stems from Mordechai Yehudi himself. Yeah. So to understand this, we have to have a better understanding of the Indian of Choshes Lamar. The Rebbe brings before that the Frierdiker Rebbe says that the pasuk says v'kibul hudim shechilu last is the zman of Purim. That's when there was the ultimate and complete commitment to Torah mitzvahs. And why was then the ultimate complete commitment to Torah mitzvahs? Because then Torah mitzvahs was Mesiras Nefesh. So the Frierdiker Rebbe explains the pasuk v'kibul hudim in regards to the time when there was the Gzeiris. There was hardships. And Yidden had in order to do Torah mitzvahs, he needed the Mesiras Nefesh to be ready to give their life away for Torah mitzvahs. But the truth is that the simple pashas of the pasuk of Kibul Yehudim is not talking about the Zman of the Gzeir. It's talking about the Zman the way it was after the Gzeir, after the Nes. And the Yidden rejoiced on the Yeshua that they had one mile. And then it says, so the Kabbalah that the Megillah speaks about, the pashas of Dvarim is not mitzad the Torah mitzvahs the way it was during the Gzeiris, but in this after the Nes, when they were rescued, when there was the Gilim Ma'il. So the Rebbe says that in truth, what do we see from this passage? That the ultimate Kabbalah, according to the Frierdiker, explains the the Kabbalah was in this man of the Gzeiris. And he explains that Choshes Lamar, because when there's a time of Choshes, that's when the Yid brings out the true essence of the Yid. Pashas of the pasuk is saying that when was there the ultimate commitment? The ultimate connection of the Yid to Elokus was not in this man of the Gzeiris, but in this man after the Gzeiris. And that's also connected to the idea of Choshes Lamar, that there's the ultimate commitment, the ultimate revelation that a Yid and Elokus is one. There is the ultimate connection of Yid with Elokus, which is revealed through Mesiras Nefesh. And there's another level in the revelation and the commitment of a Yid to Elokus, that a Yid and Elokus are one akuda, they're one. The essence of the Yid, which would emerge and was this Gala, not during this man of the Gzeiris, but in this man of the Nes, when was Lahudim Aysaida. And that's also connected to Choshes Lamar. What is the Choshes Lamar? The Rebbe says that there's a different Choshes, not a Choshes that comes from this Gzeiris. That brings Mesiras Nefesh. That's Mesiras Nefesh. There's another eighth of Choshes. That even when a Yid there's Lahudim Aysaida v'simcha v'sasam v'ikar. There's Archav v'gashmis, Erev v'simcha v'sasam v'ikar in a literal way. There's light, and there's joy, and there's happiness, there's abundance, and there's physical. All their needs are they have whatever they need in a archavic way, and all there's a beruchni spiritually. There's Torah, there was Yom Tif and Mila. It was all the in a ruchnistic sense they had an abundance of the Gidei Lukus. But after it became, they were still in Golus. They were still under the Malchus of Hashvi'i. And the fact that a Yid's in Golus, a Yid's broken from the very fact that he's in Golus. The fact that his Mikdash wasn't rebuilt, and he's under the Mlucha of Hashvi'i. From that, a Yid is broken and he's crushed. He's crushed from the fact that he's in Galus. And this brokenness, and the fact that we're in Galus, that also, this brokenness of a Yid, not the brokenness that comes from Gzeiris. The brokenness that a Yid is Subrachem from the fact that he's in Galus, that also brings out the essence of a Yid, the fact that Yid and Elokus are one. Now, what do we see in the fact that Yid is broken, that we're in Galus, that brings out the essence of the Yid? So the Rebbe says the fact that Yid is broken from being in Galus, that even though he has whatever he needs, he's not broken because he's lacking something. In the literal sense, he has whatever he needs. The Gashmi has whatever he needs. Ruchni he has whatever he needs. Why is he's broken even though he has whatever he needs? Because the true will of a Yid, the true desire of a Yid is not to have abundance, not to live a good life, and not to have whatever he needs. But the true desire of a Yid is that Elokus should be Bizgalus, that there should be Gidei Elokus. And this desire that a Yid has to be Gidei Elokus is something which touches him and bothers him to his very core, to the very essence of his being. His very essence of his being is shattered or is touched from the fact that there's no Gidei Elokus. That's his true will, and a true will, which this desire is something which he cares about, and it touches him in his very core, in his very essence. It's not just would enhance his life, would enhance his life to have Gidei Elokus, but his very life is dependent and can only function normally. His very being can only function normally when the Eibusher is Bizgalus. That's his true will, which is negate to him, to his very core. And therefore, the fact that there's not a Galus, there's no Gidei Elokus. There's no Gidei Elokus the way it was not a bias. And the Yizmas Bennett, the Churban didn't only happen thousands of years ago, but the Churban is a continuous thing. The Gemara says, the Shami says that whoever the Mikdash wasn't rebuilt, so it's as if it's destruct. It's as if the Churban is happening now. When he thinks about it, so that brings the Yid to be in a state of he's completely shooken up from the fact that the Gidei Elokus, the Bisman Abayis, is not here. And even if we're dealing with Yiddish in the highest level, that's Meir Behem Gidei Elokus, and a very high Gidei Elokus, and even if it's Meir Behem the Gidei Elokus the way it was Bisman Abayis, like the Spartan Chassidus, they have great Tzadikim like the Hashvi'i, then but then the Churban wasn't paying anything, and the same Gidei that was Meir Bisman Abayis is Meir today also, by then. But still, from the very fact that this Gidei Elokus is not in the entire world, that shows that even the Gidei Elokus where it does shine, is also not Bizgalus, the ultimate infinity and the ultimate unlimitedness of Elokus. From the fact that there's one place in the world that's lacking Gidei Elokus, that shows that even where there is Gidei Elokus, it's in a limited fashion. Because if the ultimate Ein Sof of Elokus, the Eibusher's, the infinite light of Hashem would have been revealed even in one place in the world, then it would affect every single place in the world. So the Alter Rebbe says that it says in Zohar that if one tzaddik in a generation would have a complete tshuva, then Mashiach would then Mashiach would come, because through tshuva a Yid through a complete tshuva, so that brings down the Gilei Ein Sof Ablikvo of the Eibusher, and if the Ein Sof Ablikvo is big Gilei in one place in the world, would affect the entire world. So the fact that the whole world there isn't Gilei Elokus in the entire world, that means that by any tzaddik in the generation there isn't a complete tshuva. So from the fact that it's not Meir Ben the Gilei of Atzma saying itself, the Eibusher himself is not revealed. So a Yid is broken and crushed. He's crushed. He's broken and is Subrach. Now, that like it's known that the Hebrew word for being ill is chayla. Chayla is the numerical value is 49. That even if a Yid is Meir, the highest levels of the Giluim of Elokus, but if he's lacking the highest revelation of the bleak bull of Elokus, so he's missing the Shar Anon, so a Yid's ill. He can't function straight. The normal function of a Yid is when the Eibusher himself is revealed. And if there isn't the Gilei of Atzma Seder itself, then a Yid, that's not called functioning normally. The Rebbe brings, that's also what it's known what the Tammuz-English writes, that it would be heard from the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe used to say that I don't want anything. I don't desire anything. I don't desire Gan Eden. I don't desire Elam Habe. I don't desire anything aside for you alone, for the Eibusher himself. The Rebbe says the fact that this lashon was heard from the Alter Rebbe, and then the fact that Tammuz-English was mefarsim it, and the Mashmos, I skipped the part. Mashmos is the fact that the Tammuz-English writes that this lashon used to be heard, would be heard from. We would hear from the Alter Rebbe. So Mashma says that it's not like the Alter Rebbe said this in special occasions, as Manim of Vegas. That was a regular, frequent thing. The Alter Rebbe used to say that he only wants the Eibusher himself. fact that the Rebbe that used to be heard constantly and in a regular way, frequently from the Alter Rebbe, and some tzaddik was mefarsim it. So that gave every single yid the ability that his primary desire should be that there should be gilui atzmos, that the Eibusher himself should be in an open and a revealed way. And at kedei kach, and when this gilui is not meir, then it touches him to his very core. He's crushed to his very core. And the frater, it's not that especially when it's not only that the gilui atzmos is not meir, but even lower levels aren't bizgalus. And it's not meir, even the gilui the way it was b'zman habayis, so that touches the yid to his very core, and the yid is completely broken, and he's crushed, and the yid asks time and again, 3 times a day or more, that we should see with our own eyes the Eibusher's return to Tzion, the gilui b'la'ashlav, which then is going to be the gilui atzmos. Now the Rebbe says that the fact that that's also the explanation. Well, that's another beer in Koshes Lamor. You have Koshes Lamor that there's Gzeiris, and that Mesiras Nefesh. Mesiras Nefesh brings out that a Yid in the Lokos, a Yid can't be detached from the Eibusher. But then there is the Etzem of Yid, the way it's brought out by being crushed, that there isn't Gilui Lokus in the world. The Mashiach doesn't come. The fact that the primary ratzon of every single Yid is that there should be Gilui Lokus, and this ratzon is not just some additional ratzon, but that's this desire is negeh to Yid in his very essence. That's because a Yid's very essence is oneness with Hashem. The core of a Yid is being united, being one with Elokus. So Shas, the Eibusher is not meir that touches him in his very essence. He cannot be complete. He cannot exist without Gilui Elokus. He can't function without Gilui Elokus. So that also expresses that a Yid's core, a Yid's essence is being one with Hashem. And when he doesn't have it, when it's not Begili, when it's not apparent, when there's concealment in Elokus, it touches him to his very core. Because the Yid in Elokus is one etzem. So here we have 2 biurim. You have the Kibbul Hidim Sheichel Lasis, that's the complete commitment. When was in this Gala that a Yid in Elokus is really one essence, one thing, you can't detach Yid from the Eibusher. You have the way it is with Zman HaGzeiris, and the Yid is Mesiras Nefesh. Mesiras Nefesh comes from the fact that a Yid can't detach himself. That's one way they have the expression of the Etzman Hashem. Another way you have the expression of the Etzman Hashem is that a Yid's desire is, and a desire which his whole essence is dependent on this desire, is that the Eibusher should be revealed. And that also brings out the etzem of a Yid, that a Yid and the Eibusher are really one. And they can't exist. A Yid can't exist without a Elokus. So that's 2 extensions of Koshes Lamor. So the Rebbe adds here, it's based on what we said before, that the Kibbul Yehudim means that one was the ultimate commitment, the ultimate Tizgalus that a Yid and the Elokus is one, that was in the Zman of Purim. So you have the Kabbalah the way it was with Zman HaGzeiris. You have the Kabbalah the way it is in the Zman of after when there was the Nest. So the Rebbe says in a certain way, the Rebbe says that the Gilui of the Etzem of a Yid, the fact that a Yid and a Elokus are one, that what is the essence of a Yid, oneness with Hashem, that's brought out in a more deeper way, in a stronger way. The oneness of a Yid with Elokus is brought out in a much stronger way in the fact that a Yid's broken, that we're in Galus, even more than the idea of Mesiras Nefesh. Even though the Mesiras Nefesh comes from the fact that a Yid you cannot detach it from Elokus, but still, in a certain sense, where is it this Gala in the fullest Eifen? The true essence of a Yid, that a Yid's one with Elokus, is brought out in the Inyan that a Yid's broken, in fact that we're in Galus. What's the explanation? So the Rebbe explains like this. We find the Chassidus, Rebbe brought before, what's the reason why the ultimate commitment, the ultimate Kabbalah was the Zman of Purim? The Rebbe says because that's when the Yid had Mesiras Nefesh. But there's another explanation of Chassidus. Chassidus explains that the reason why the ultimate Kabbalah was the Zman of Purim, not the Zman of Torah, is because the fact that Yidden said Nasa v'Nishma, they accepted upon themselves Torah mitzvahs, Bizman Matan Torah wasn't mitzvah, it wasn't from their own accord. It wasn't their own personal decision on their own. That was, they were persuaded by the Gilim O'Mayla. Kafalei Harkegigis, there was a great Gilim O'Mayla, which that inspired them and that affected them to want to accept Torah mitzvahs. That was Matan Torah. So the fact that they accepted Torah mitzvahs was that wasn't from their own, that wasn't their own personal, from their own accord, from their own self. That stemmed from Elokus affected them. Inkim is man Purim, where there was a hell of a Hester, the fact that Yidden accepted upon themselves Torah mitzvahs that was on their own accord, it's on their own ratzon. So the Rebbe says that's also massive. The Rebbe explains earlier that the reason why Bisman Purim there was the ultimate Kabbalah wasn't inside Mesiras Nefesh, because in a certain way, like the Rebbe explained before, the difference between when you say the Emunah, when is a Yid's connection to Elokus doesn't bring it to Mesiras Nefesh. That's when the Emunah stems from the Neshama Shalamayla, which sees Elokus. So that is that the fact that he's connected to Lakus is because he's affected by a higher energy. He's affected by a higher level, by the Neshama Shalamayla, by Gilei Lakus. That's Matan Torah. It wasn't revealed that a Yid's essence, that he himself is one with Hashem. A Yid himself is an entity for itself. A Lakus affects him, a higher energy affects him. So it affects him Mazli Chazi, or it affects him like Matan Torah, there was a Gilei Lamayla. Mash'enkin, when you speak about Mesiras Nefesh, that's the Zman of Purim. The Kabbalah comes, the fact that he accepted upon themselves that came on their own accord, because that's their essence, that's their core, that's their mitzvahs. That's Mesiras Nefesh. A Yid can't detach himself from the Lakus because he is one with the Yid. So that's the Hatama, what the Fizik Rebbe explains, even if Kabbalah of Zman Purim wasn't said Mesiras Nefesh, what generally he says that the reason, the mile of the Kabbalah of Purim was that it came from a Yid's perspective, from his own accord. They accepted upon themselves from their own side. So that's the same likud that a Yid's there by Zman Purim was that a Yid's essence is a likus. From his very being is connection with Hashem. But the Rebbe says like this: if you go by Prati Yisrael, it means if you examine the Indian more in detail, so the truth is that even Mesiras Nefesh on a certain aspect, doesn't bring out that a Yid's own mitzvahs, that a Yid's own personal reality is one with Hashem. The Rebbe is going to explain. It says like this. The Rebbe says a person, just to say it simply, that a person is built of, you have the external part of the neshama, the Rebbe calls it keches hagluim. That is the revealed or apparent faculties of the neshama. Person's seichel, a person's midas. That's keches that the neshama has. Revealed keches, the revealed qualities of the neshama. That's his seichel, his midas. That's one part of the neshama. Standing a lakos, feeling for the Eibishter. And then there's the essence of Yid. The essence of a Yid, there's no seichel, there's no midas. A Yid's muhus is being one with the Eibishter. Unity with Hashem. He doesn't have his own way of understanding things. He doesn't have his own way of feeling things. Seichel and midas is a Yid has a certain character, a certain personality. He has a way of understanding. He has a seichel. He has midas. The etzem neshama, there's no seichel, there's no midas. There's oneness with Hashem. So the Rebbe says when we're dealing with avada, the essence of a Yid is the fact not that he has seichel and midas. The essence of a Yid is the fact that he's one with Hashem, an unconditional connection and a unity with Hashem. But then there's the Yid's external self, so to speak. Is the seichel midas. The seichel midas, that's not the core of the Yid, but that's also kayches which stem from the neshama. So the Rebbe says, in respect to a person's revealed self, his seichel midas, Mesiras Nefesh is the fact that Yid's meiser nafshe and the Yid gives away his life for the Eibishter. That's not because his brain demands Mesiras Nefesh, not because his natural external self demands Mesiras Nefesh. On the contrary, B'shas Mesiras Nefesh, the etzem of a Yid is revealed. The etzem of a Yid emerges. And the etzem of a Yid, there is no self. There is oneness with Hashem. When oneness with Hashem is revealed, that what's the true essence, not his seichel, not his midas, his essence with Hashem. So Yid gives away his life. He cannot detach himself from the Lakus. But in respect to his natural external self, his natural external self is not affected, is not transformed, and is not connected to this Mesiras Nefesh. Mesiras Nefesh comes from his core, but not from the faculties which come from this core. The external self which stems from this core. Mesiras Nefesh comes from the essence of a Yid, but not from his external and apparent and visible self. It comes from the part of Yid where there is no self. But the keches hagluim of a Yid, the keches hagluim of the neshama, there the Mesiras Nefesh doesn't affect them in an eternal way. So in respect to the keches hagluim, it's as if the fact that Yid is going Mesiras Nefesh, that's because there's a higher realm of himself affecting him. His true essence is really beyond a Yid's personality, a Yid's character. It's his essence, but his essence itself is higher than his external self. You see clearly, you see Yidden that there was Zman of Zedis, so they had to Mesiras Nefesh. They had Mesiras Nefesh for not just on a rare occasion. They had Mesiras Nefesh for years, for Yar Nachanan, Meshach Kama the Kamashan. And even though they lived in a state of Mesiras Nefesh Meshach for a great amount of time, still it didn't transform their seichel. It didn't transform their external self, the way they understand things, the way their feelings, their seichel, their own self. It didn't transform. They stood with Mesiras Nefesh because the essence of Yid is not his self. The essence of Yid is unity with Hashem, giving himself away for the Eibishter. That's the essence of Yid. But the external part of Yid, the fact that he does have a sense of self, that wasn't transformed through the Mesiras Nefesh. So in respect to the Yid's keches hagluim, in respect to a Yid's open and appeared self, his external self, legabe that, The etzem neshama is beyond that. It's higher than that, and it's in a certain, even though it's their core, but it's not something which affects them in an internal way. It doesn't change the way the seichel amidus work, the way his brain and his heart feels. And that's why after they came to the Akshas Harvacha, there was no need for Mesiras Nefesh. So it's not recognizable so much. It says it's not nikr kol kach. It's not so recognizable the fact that they stood for Mesiras Nefesh Meshach so many years, because even though the etzem was made by them, but their keiches, their external self, their seichel amidus wasn't transformed, wasn't changed mitzad etzem. Because the Rebbe explains the etzem, it's their core, but it's not necessarily limited and connected to the personality and to the framework of the seichel amidus. Seichel is understanding, and midus is feeling. Seichel and midus aren't changed and aren't transformed mitzad the gili of the etzem neshama. The etzem neshama is beyond understanding and feeling. It's a unconditional dedication towards the Eibishter, beyond seichel and midus. But it doesn't necessarily affect the seichel and midus. It's a Jew's etzem, but it doesn't affect his external self. In the fact that he's broken, the fact that we're in Golos, the Rebbe says that the fact that he's broken, the fact that we're in Golos, that means that even when a Yid is not that his etzem is revealed, we're talking about a Yid which he has seichel, he has midus, and his regular self is apparent. It's not that it's revealed. It's a higher level that he has no self. His self is there. He has seichel, he has midus, and still his seichel and midus can't function. His brain can. He's fully broken and he's completely shattered in the fact that Mashiach didn't come, the fact that the Geulah didn't come. So the fact that even not the fact that he's broken is not because it's some higher, deeper reality of himself is revealed. We're dealing with his regular natural self, and that self can't function. That self, its desire is, and to the extent that he's fully broken, his seichel can't function normally, his midas don't function normally. He's fully taken over by this essential desire to see Elokus. That's because his keches hagluyim, his external self, was transformed, and their whole function is, their whole essence is to see Elokus. Not only the core of the Yid is beyond his own self, but also the self of the Yid. What is its basic desire is to see Elokus. So the Rebbe says, and that's so in a certain way, the Kabbalah, the way it was man when it was man of Archava, that's a Kabbalah that doesn't stem from there's a revelation of something deeper in a Yid. Even when a Yid is in his natural external self, in his revealed keiches, even there he's fully permeated by the desire of his core, that his whole desire is that Elokus should be Bizgalut. And that comes from the difference between why is it that Mesiras Nefesh doesn't transform his external self, the seichel amidus, his brain and the way he understands it and the way he feels it. And the fact that he's broken, Mashiach didn't come. So the ratzon for a Yid to see Elokus, that transforms also his external self, that they can't function, that they're fully shattered. The fact that Elokus is not Bizgalus is because the causes of Zaydas bring out the etzem, the way the etzem has some definition. The definition of the etzem is that it's beyond self. It's beyond definition. It's beyond rationale. It's beyond seichel amidus. Through the fact that he gets crushed, the Mashiach didn't come, that brings out the ultimate essence of a Yid, the way a Yid is mushrish to the Eibishter himself. The Eibishter himself higher than any definition, and therefore a Yid's unity with Hashem is also beyond any definition. Beyond the definition to say that it cannot transform his own personal character. And therefore, when the connection of a Yid, when it's revealed that a Yid's essence is oneness with Hashem himself, which Hashem is higher than is beyond any definition. It doesn't have to reveal itself in a form of going beyond itself, even from the very seichel amidus of a Yid. So at the end of the day, the Rebbe is explaining here that the Kosis Lamar, the ultimate Kosis Lamar, when is the ultimate revelation of the true essence of a Yid, that a Yid's ultimately one with the Eibishter himself, and the same with the Eibishter himself is beyond any definition. There's the Yid's desire to connect to the Eibishter is beyond any form or definition, and therefore is able to transform even his seichel amidus, even his external self. That brings out the ultimate essence of a Yid, that is one with the Eibishter himself, and that's Nizgal through being broken for the fact that we're in goals. This is the feasible understand. What the Friedrich Rebbe says, that the Tzavas Bnei Yisrael is that the fact that when you're going to have the Shem and Zayis of Kosis Lamar doesn't come through Moshe Rabbeinu's Ashpa, but Kosis Lamar comes through. That's what Yidden contribute. The Yikhoy Lech Hashem and Zayis of Kosis Lamar. Yidden with their Aveda, they bring Kosis Lamar. The Rebbe says an Aveda means that Moshe Rabbeinu is Megala Yid Etzman Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu is the one that he nurtures the emunah, that the emunah should stem from his etz. That the fact that unity with Hashem is the very core of the Yid. That's brought to his galas. That's effective through Moshe Rabbeinu. He's mamshach that. But a Yid's aveda is that this essential bond with Holocaust that should transform his way of understanding. That should transform his feeling, and then when it transforms his external self, he brings out the ultimate and the true oneness of Yid with Hashem, that a Yid is one with the Eibusher himself, just beyond any definition. And that's the Kashes Lamar. The ultimate Mar is Nizgala through the fact that a Yid is broken, that he's in Galus, which comes because he works on himself, that his external character should be in sync, should be massive to his etzem, that his etzem is being one with Hashem. And that Rebbe adds over here that when that it says V'adas Havas Bnei Yisrael, even though the Friedrich was Meinach in the Maimer, V'adas Havas Bnei Yisrael, that Moshe Rabbeinu connects the Yid with the Eibusher. The Rebbe adds here in this paragraph that the Pashas Akra is V'adas Havas Bnei Yisrael, that Moshe Rabbeinu connects Yid between themselves. So Al Derech Zeh, the Rebbe says that V'adas Havas Bnei Yisrael is that the essence of Moshe Rabbeinu is not connecting them to Hashem, not connecting them to it himself. The essence of Moshe Rabbeinu is revealing a Yid's connection to Elokus the way it stems from the essence of Yid, from his core. From the core of the Yid, all Yidden are one. There's achdus between Yidden. So since Moshe Rabbeinu's tafkid to Megal the etzem of the Yid, that the result of that is that Yidden are connected between themselves. Inside the etzem of a Yid, inside this very core, he's one with Hashem, and he's one. The all Klal Yisrael is one. There's achdus between Yidden themselves. All Yidden are really one. And al derech zeh, when Yidden do their avodah, that their external fact, that their seichel and their midas should be in line with the desire of their etzem. So that also affects that the achdus Yisrael that there is between Yidden is not only in mitzad the etzem and higher levels of Yid, but even in a practical sense, where every Yid has his own character. Also, the way Yidden are in their physical inyanim, in their materialistic things, there's a sense of oneness between Yidden. Not only a sense of oneness because we forget about our different characters, and there's an etzem which there we're all one, we're all beyond definition. But even when every Yid has his character and he has his life and his physical life, even in that sense, we're all one. Because the Gilui, the Keiches HaGlimah, the external self of the Neshama, through the Aveda of the Yid, becomes in line and becomes massive and becomes one with the very essence of the soul. So that's according to this, we'll also understand why the pasuk, there's one pasuk which says Me'erev ad Beker, that Menorah is kindled by night, and one pasuk says L'hau this near Tammuz. So the Rebbe says we speak about Moshe Rabbeinu's hashpa, the Va'ata that Savush, that's the Megal the Etzman Hashama, which in general that's the Megal the Etzman Hashama, the way it has some definition. Only through a Yid's Aveda that a person's external self should be in line with his essence. That a person has to work to transform his seichel amidas. His seichel amidas that he has to work, he has to change. Moshe Rabbeinu himself but Moshe Rabbeinu himself brings about and he's Megala the Yid's essence. Doesn't that itself doesn't transform the Yid's chitzenis. The etzem of a Yid, there's certain times where it's more bizgal, in times of Erev, in times of Seiris, and there's a need for Mr. Snevesh, so that's more conducive to the Gidei of etzem and Shamashik. In the times of Baker, when there's Harchava, so then that's not a conducive time to be Megal the etzem of the Neshama. Then a Yid self is more apparent. In the times of Baker, in times of Gilim, when things are doing well, then the essence of a Yid that he has an unconditional and that he has no self, that's revealed in the time of Zedis. In the time of Baker, in the time of Gilim, when things are doing well, then the external part of a Yid is Bizgalus. He has a self, he has a seichel, he has a midas. And in order to affect that the candle should be kindled constantly, that even by day a Yid should be burning with the connection to Hashem, there should be a ner tamid. That's by Yid affected that even his keiches haglim, even his external self, are also permeated with the passion of his etzem, that the seichel amidis, their sole interest and their sole desire is to see a lukus. So the ner tamid is affected through the v'ikhoylech. And that's why, since the ultimate tomorrow, about the through Mr. Nefesh, you have the revelation of the essence of a Yid, through the fact that Yid goes in Mr. Nefesh, that brings out that a Yid can be detached from the Eibusher. He's one with Hashem. But the ultimate revelation, the fact that Yid's one with Hashem, is through the v'ikhoylech, that Yid works on himself and he makes his keiches haglim aligned to his etzem. So that brings out that a Yid is one with the Eibusher himself, that the Eibusher is beyond any definition. Therefore, we say, Kashes Lamar behemchach tu da veda v'ikhoylech. Now, the Rebbe adds at the end of the Maimer that the Pashtus V'adas Havas Bnei Yisrael v'ikhoylech is that the fact that there's need v'ikhoylech is also a result of that. Moshe Rabbeinu is going to command them to bring Hashem into Moshe Rabbeinu. What it means now in Primis Yonim is that Moshe Rabbeinu is connecting us to the Eibusher, and his being mamshach the etzem is naifin, that he gives us the power, he gives us the ability, he gives us the sinas koyach to be able to also transform our Keres HaGluim. Not only he reveals the etzem, and then in order to affect the Keres HaGluim, that's only that we have to do ourselves. But Moshe Rabbeinu gives us the power also that the etzem should be nimshach in a way that it should transform also our external self. That's also when you get to Moshe Rabbeinu of our generation, that the Chatmu Chadur Nesiderenu, that his work was to awaken and to reveal the faith that every single Yid has, which stems from the core of a Yid, from the essence of a Yid. And in a not only that the essence should be revealed in a way that shouldn't be effective in his external self, but in a way that the etzem should also be able to affect, and they should do that. It gives them the ability to do their avodah also with their own kayach. The fact that we could serve Hashem, we could work on ourselves and transform ourselves with our own ability. That's also through the kayach of Moshe Rabbeinu, until that the ner should shine constantly without any. There shouldn't be a possibility for change, because even the Keres HaGluim are fully permeated with the ratzon of the etzem Hashem. And through this, through the avodah b'yid, we'll be zeicha b'karev mamish kol mitzvah shlema, and then we'll be gilul of course not only mitzad l'mayla but also mitzad the mata, also mitzad the nibra himself. And then there's going to be a Baruch Hashem, and there's going to be the hadlagas haneres, Yikol Hashem zalas nirtamed, also pashat not only b'pnimis enyan but also b'gashmis mamish b'zmidas hashlishi b'gula hamidus Hashem ad Mashiach tzadkenu b'karev mamish.
Al pi poshut is a tzadik b'shas is eile lemailo. Zet sich demol die alle Unionen von Aores Alakus on halomis vestein wie sie stehen lemailo, is sich lichiere was leintos, verbinden sich mit Unionen, was eine verbunden mit Neilem Hase Hagashmi, was b'shas meisi is jefscher belavhoche, ado soll a cholapochisch lerega nicht mevalbel sein, von den oder noch von der höheren Linien, ist das alles bei Medvorim Amurim, wenn sie gehen rein in Cheshbenis. Als aber hat sich eingestellt im ganzen Leben bei Almadein, aber darf verbegen auf sich, nicht nur auf die eigenen Unionen Agashmim, nur auf viele auf Unionen Aruchnim, zu lieb zu tun a Teva Ayiden, ist Allahas Kame ve Kame, die Gmore Pasken Top, als der, was over Reif Schneesov, wenn hat sich geführt, wie sie darf zu sein, ist demult muftach, als Mikanul habe der schöner Versicherter. Ist Allahas Kame ve Kame, der, was wird angerufen, Beshem Tzadik oder Beshem Chosid, was auf der Ruf sagt sich Rasha Chosid im Ikore, ist war nicht nur Reif Schneesov, nur war den Kol Schneesov, wie gewinn eingestellt in dem Seder, von Messias Nafshi Hativis, a viele Messias Nafshi Holekis zu Libateviton Aiden, ist a viele nicht nur beschaß mehr halt in der erste Judbeis Chedisch, a viele, was demut ist min Zecheche Tele Beile Acherilui. A viele noch der Judbeis Chedisch, was demut ist sich an Neshome Elo, wie Schuh weine Jeredes, bewohren sich gleich deswes, als sie will, kann sie dann noch Hechetjere sein, über wem nicht das Asofik will sie nicht, Bishas mot ne gewusst auf was für a Chazok gestanden bemäschig Yemei Chayov Beyalmadein. Und der aber was kol Yemei Chayov hat sich geführt mit Asamin Hanhoge, is a dover batuach, wie bald als Ovru Reifschneise, Vechol Schneise, in der Hanhoge, is Mikanula habe, wird sich führen mit der selber Hanhoge, als in die alle Iluim, was sich hele. In Azeni Iluim, was a viele mit Amiras Kaddish kommen sich hinzu niedergreichen, is afal Pikein hotter bei sich, hat die Starkheit, als verbindet sich mit Wahrhafteler Jacho Komecho und nimmt mit, hat die alle seine Talmidim, alle seine Chsidim, alle seine Mikushorim, a viele hat die, was haben mehr nicht wie gehad, a Scheiches mit dem, nimmt sie mit in seine Aliyes, als sie alle, bei Jesem Nishome beguf, bei Almadein, sollen sie können eile sein, bei Darge, Achar Darge, in die alle Unionen, in welche sie vernehmen sich und in welche hat gewollt, als sie sollen nuftern. Bemele benegei al Hapeil, aber man kann sich meinen, wie bald, dass sie noch in der nächsten Jahrzeit
Ich habe die ganze Zeit das gemieden schreiben der ersten Jahrzeit, aber wir gewollt schreiben den Wort testen, aber geschrieben der erste Hilule. Da fahren es mir alle hoffen sich, aber mehr wie jene Jahrzeit wird nicht sein. Warum sie sein, der war Kiese, wir ran und Schechen Joffer, wir Hube Vechom, und Melo haben mir jetzt gewährt mit 10 Jahrzeit. Und danach in den Praven Hilulis, aber da genug Jahrzeiten. Aber man kann sich meinen, nach dem Jahrzeit, bei Mele siehst du Hashvi'i Sholem, da etwas Achlisches in die Hiskaschris, darf man wissen sein, dass die Sache verkehrt, als Aderabe wie Aderabe, aber wie bald da sitzt sehr Eloi bei Iloi Achariloi, ist Nesef auf die Kirches, was gehabt, bis ist hat noch Kirches Nisofim, Bemele bei uns allen und bei jedem von uns befragt, gibt ist der Kirches Nisofim, man soll können auftan, oder die alle Unionen, was jeder von uns darf auftan, leichter, wie sie gewähren, Besitzer, und auch der Halomes Westerim sollen sein weniger, wie sie seinen gewähren, Besitzer. Und wenn gehe alla Peil, mit der Rebbe fleckt sich als Monnen in jeder Linie Nasi bepeil, ist auch von Heim bei Nacht oder von morgen in der Früh sollen wissen sein, dass die Schliches, was der Rebbe hat jedem gegeben, ich betokfe mehr, dass wie bis ist jetzt erreicht, und verkehrt, sie darf zukommen, hat es für bei Jesser Seis, bei Jesser Ros, waren wir bald, am gibt mehr Kirches, ist das Himmel, am darf mehr Rufton. Und beschaß mit mehr Rufton wird sein, die Weiterdicke Wege leichter zu tun, weil man sich schön eingewöhnt und man hat durchgebrochen, der Halomes Westerim, was gewähnt bis ist er.
We're going to be getting ready to write a pan for Gimmel Tammuz, and I'd like to share some thoughts, some things that the Rebbe and the Rebbe wrote about a pan that we should have in mind when we have to write it. So first of all, it's important to remember a pan we write, and nusach that we don't always write when we go into Yechidus, write Le'er, Rachmim, Rabim. And it's something that we write when it comes to a Yom Hilula, a very special time before Rosh Hashanah. These are times when everything is judged before Rosh Hashanah for the year, and we need to have a schus miyuchad for the year. And the same thing is also when it comes to Yom Hilula. So there is a special, as they tell us, a special koyach of the Rebbeim to be made rachmim, or in general during the year when a person needs to have special tefillas, whatever it is. So we go to the Rebbe, we give him a pan and ask him to be made rachmim. It's a little bit different on the surface, it seems, from a yechidus. When you go into yechidus, there's also other things you ask. Sometimes a bracha, sometimes you ask for hadracha, you look for guidance. You look for guidance in whether it's for bigger chassidim in Avodas Hashem, or for many other things for most of us, for things to do with our lives, things to do with our shlichus, things to do with our health. We ask for these things. We don't know we have sveikas, what to do, and we ask the Rebbe. But the truth is that even when we go to the oil or even in a pan, these things are also included. As we know, that the Rebbe said that when you go even to the oil, he's talking about the Frierdiker Rebbe, that you can ask anything, and the Rebbe finds a way to answer. So much of the way that we prepare ourselves to approach going into Yechidus is very similar to the way we prepare ourselves when we have to write a pan. There's a very interesting episode about this I'd like to share with you, and it's printed my Zayda, Vashon, that's Rabbi Yisrael Jacobson. He describes in this book that's Zichron Yisrael. So he writes there about in Tafresh Pei, when he went to visit, the end of the month of Adar, he went to visit the Frierdiker Rebbe in Leningrad, and he describes the way that at that time he saw the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin had come. The Rebbe came to meet the Rebbetzin then, and he was there in one of the evenings, and the Rebbe came there. The Rebbe writes that he went into Yechidus with the Frierdiker Rebbe, and it was on a Thursday night, and it was the week before Beis Nisan, and the Frierdiker Rebbe tells him that he wants to make him a shaliach. The Frierdiker Rebbe says, as I said, he wants him to be a shaliach, to go to the stuff, to the oil of the Rebbe Rashab, and he gives him pidyanos that he wants him to read. It's interesting. He tells him like this, reading from there. He says that you should put. He gave him a package of not only. First of all, give him a package of pidyanos that people wrote to the Frierdiker Rebbe, and he told him to take the whole package to the oil of the Rebbe Nishmas Eden. Just like you remember, the Rebbe used to take a peklach of tzedlach people wrote to the Rebbe took it to the oil of the Frierdiker Rebbe. The Frierdiker Rebbe wanted to send this to the oil of the Rebbe Rashab. So he gives him a package, big package, and then he gives him also a pan that he himself wrote. The Frierdiker Rebbe wrote about himself. He says, as far as the peklach goes with all the pidyanos. Don't just put it down. Doesn't have to read anything. Just put it down in the oil. But as far as his own pidyon, he asked the Ma'izeda to read it, but he tells them that it's only allowed to read it one time at the oil, and not before that, and not after that, not to make any copies of it, not to show it to anybody. And then he says, no heter ba'olam to be able to do it. So Ma'izeda only read it that time at the oil of the Rebbe Rashab. He read it very slowly. He doesn't remember all the details, but he does remember that the Frierdiker Rebbe asked about Inyanim to do with his situation, his position as a Rebbe, and also about Klal Yisrael. And he also asked about Anashim Pratim, and he wrote their names. Anyway, later he says like this, that before he left Yechidus, so the Frierdiker Rebbe told him like this, Yisrael, du weißt, wie sie reden zum Taten. And so he you know how to speak to my father, to the Rebbe Rashab. And so my Seder was tumult. And so the Frierdiker Rebbe continued and said like this, Zum Taten darf man reden wie auf Yechidus. You speak to my father the way you would speak at Yechidus. Du bist doch gewähnt bei dem Taten of Yechidus. You were in Yechidus. So you know, in other words, you know how one should speak to the Rebbe in Yechidus. Sollst du sagen, say as follows. Rebbe, ich bin a Shliach von our Sohn und von der Rebbetzin. Rebbe, I am a Shliach of your son, which was the Frierdiker Rebbe, and from the Rebbetzin, sie haben mir gemacht für a Shliach. They made me a Shliach. And then, after you finish reading the minor, then you say the minor lesson. Okay. And my Seder writes also that Rav Zalman Duchman, Alav Shalom, was then in Leningrad, and he said that the Frierdiker Rebbe had said, he remembered that he said that when you'll be in the oil in the morning, you'll be at the same time I daven shacharis, davening gishmak, I'll daven better. Anyway, that was the thing. So what we see, it's a very interesting thing that we see two things. First of all, that the way that you give the pan has a very big element of the way you go to Yechidus. And secondly, we see there was a difference in the way different kinds of pidyanos, you just didn't even have to be read. It was just put down at the oil. And but the Frierdiker Rebbe wanted, there was a whole different sug, the pan that he had, he wanted him to actually read it there. If we take a look for Gimmel Tammuz, in the way that the Rebbe describes writing a pidyon in Tafshin Yud, the first, in Tafshin Yud Aleph. This is the first time that was Rosh Chodesh Shvat, the Rebbe writes a letter, is printed in L'Kutei Sichos, in Chelik Yud Aleph. It's printed in other places as well. And there the Rebbe writes like this about a pan. After davening shacharis on the day of the Yom Hilula, which will be Gimmel Tammuz, and after we chazer the Maimer, then it was Basalagani, now we'll have the Maimer for Nafri Gimmel Tammuz. Yikid kolechet pidyon nefesh, everyone should read their pan. Kimuvan, b'chagiris abneit, understandably you have to wear a gatlan. and those who had the schus to be in Yechidus with the Frierdiker Rebbe that Rebbe is writing, Ayal Kol Panim, Lidas Hespnei, Ketushas Mechad Mur, Hakam, those who had the schus at least to see, if not in Yechidus, to see the Frierdiker Rebbe, Yitzayir Atzmai, he should picture in his mind as if he is basically a sapan. When he is going to read his pan that he wrote, he should visualize himself as if he's standing before the Rebbe and reading his pan. Which means that you should it's not just a question of writing words and putting it in the aisle, but that when you read the pan, you have to read the pan before you send it. You have to read the pan and feel as if you're then standing in Yechidus. The Rebbe writes, those who saw the Frierdiker Rebbe, those who when Yechidus especially. Now for us nowadays, it's a lot easier because we have the Rebbe's pictures all over, and even those who didn't have the schus to be in Yechidus or to see, but you could see the Rebbe, the picture, and we should be able to try to feel as if we're standing in Yechidus, standing before the Rebbe, and we read it, and then after we finish reading the pan that we wrote, Laniach hapan achakach in daf maimer, we put the pan into the pages of a maimer of the Rebbe. Kunteris could be a sikh of the Rebbe. So in other words, that we're putting it in because this is where the Rebbe is in his Torah, and we put it in there. Shall Torah, okay. And l'shalche b'mefshiri b'bayim, we should send it, and if possible on that very same day. Amnash l'kreis al tzin should be read there. I have to say that it's interestingly, that in the original text of the Rebbe's letter, it was a slightly different here. It was written like this: Laniach hapan achakach bein dafei hamaimer v'kuntres v'cholu shel Teiras from the Frierdiker Rebbe, and then the Rebbe had written originally ve'im be'efshiri, and if possible, l'shalchei be'bayim, to send it that day to be read at Tzion. The Rebbe later, this was the original text. I have a copy of the letter that the Rebbe sent to my father. And there, the Rebbe made he made I don't know if I could show this. It could be seen, you could see over here, the Rebbe went with a pen, like up and down around the words, and he says, instead of it's saying, Vim b'avshiri l'shalchai, Vim b'avshiri l'shalchai b'b'yim, the Rebbe put first the words, the way it's now printed in Lukutei Sichos and Chelik Yudalef, u'l'shalchai, he added the vav u'l'shalchai, and he took out the vav im b'avshiri, u'l'shalchai, and then he put in, and here he says im b'avshiri b'bayim, and in the printed edition there's a further correction where the Rebbe puts the words im b'avshiri in parentheses. So what that means, it means that not to think that if you can't, the way it was originally, someone might misread it and think that only if it's possible do you send it at all, because it said, so what happens if you can't? Then you don't send it. No, the Rebbe says that you send it, and if possible, on that very same day. And we know that sending a pan, the very moment that you send a pan, it's already there's stories about the Chassid, the Tzaddik, the Rebbe said it many times. As soon as you send it, it's already Agatan. I personally had an experience like that when I was in the first Kfusa going to Australia in Chavzayin. That was, I think it was Chavzayin or Chavches. Anyway, I wrote a pan. I sent to the Rebbe of Mayem who led us, which is several days after Purim, and I dropped it in the mailbox in Australia on Purim day, late afternoon, just before the end of the day. And on Purim, of course, there's hours difference between Australia's ahead of in time than New York, but still, till the letter would get there, and those times especially was a long time. But my father went on the Purim Fabrengen. He went up to the Rebbe to say, Chaim, ask a bracha from me for the Yom Haledes, and the Rebbe said that Mishen Gishrim. So we know that as soon as you send it, it's like already agitan. At any rate, but this is, the Rebbe says that the way that it's important, the reading, the whole process, not only the writing, but the reading especially has to be done. The Rebbe doesn't say that the writing of it has to be done on the day of the Yom Elul, but he says that you have to read it in the morning after the Maimer and with the Gartel, and be mitzayer as if you're standing before the Rebbe and you're reading what you wrote, and then to send it. So, and you're mitzayer in your mind. So this is an important thing because it has a likeness, a similarity to Yechidus. When it comes to Yechidus, we know that Yechidus has some very special points. There is, in Hayom Yom, there is several things that we find about Yechidus and that are important to know. In Hayom Yom on Yud Elul, it says that the elder Chassidim, the great elder Chassidim of the Alter Rebbe, would say that the word Yechidus, based on different places in Mishnayos, has three translations. It means Perushay Klur, to clarify your situation, because when you go into Yechidus, people are movable, they don't know where they're holding, everything becomes clear. Abgestellt, which means to be kavea, to determine a seder of what a person has to do further. And the third thing is vereinzigt. Vereinzigt means to, as we say, the Lashon is kashrus, and as he says there that he touches of Zesam Meres, the union of Yechidus is l'varer esat es matzave, to clarify his situation where he's holding. The kiveya efen avidose, to determine how he's going to go further in his avedet sumira ulakado samidas tevis. And then the third thing is l'eskashir bis achdus gemura, to be connected to the Rebbe with total oneness. And what does that mean? And the Rebbe explains there, and Hayom Yom is explained, v'limsad atzmei, to give over himself, übergeben sich, devote himself, mit alle desenes, all self-interest, self-wants, all these things put aside, to give yourself over to the Rebbe, say, I'm yours, and ready to do whatever the Rebbe wants, whatever the Rebbe's nachatzruch, whatever the Rebbe's reduction is, no matter what. So this is what it means. We could look for all kinds of things, but this is the simple meaning, as he explains here. The word is kashrus, means to be devoted and give over all your detzenes to do what the Rebbe wants. So this is important for everyone, especially important for a shaliach to know. This is the basis. And to be able to do that, obviously you need preparation. It doesn't just happen, because we're all involved in our own messy lives. We're involved in all kinds of things. And so we also find in Hayom Yom another thing about a Yechidus, that it's like when you salt meat for kashering meat, there's a three-pronged process in it. First, you have tafshriya, you have to vacancy, you have to take the meat and has to soak. You have to soak the meat to be able to make it softer and be able to have the salt penetrate. Then you salt it, and that takes out the blood, takes out the part that's unwanted, and that leaves the part that is wanted. And then the third thing is that you have to then rinse it. And he goes on and says like this. What does that mean in Yechidus Navedas Hashem? Shriya means that you vacuum sich in Divrei Harav. You immerse yourself in the words of the Rebbe. His Maimorim, Siches, you're totally immersed in it. That's preparation one. Then after that comes the Yechidus. That's the Melicha, where with the Rebbe's guidance, you separate yourself from what's not right and you put yourself on the right track. And then Hadacha means to rinse it off, to make yourself ready. And that means after the Yechidus, to be kelet everything, and that comes to a Niggin. A Niggin, Chassidish Niggin. I remember once there was Fabringen in Bekesha with Chavdala Teves, the Yom Elul of the Alter Rebbe. And I remember we sang, at the Fabringen, we sang, everyone sang a Niggin of the Alter Rebbe. And the Rebbe said that mit Ersh the Langt a pan zum Alten Rebbe, whereas the Niggin is a chelik of the pan. So the Niggin is an important part of this. Anyway, so that is some of the things we have in Hayom Yom. And then we have an interesting thing we have in Hayom Yom, as far as it goes in preparation for a Yechidus and a pan to a certain level. So this is from the Frierdiker Rebbe, and it says like this in Tafresh Prevov. It's very strong words. Hapidyan on tshuva, if you give a pan without tshuva, well, vert nit niskabel, it's not accepted. I don't know, maybe it means on a higher level. Umilentes nit, it's not read. Und es macht noch kalle, and it even makes things worse. So of course it means many different levels. I mean, obviously it doesn't mean that we have to have at least a very basic tshuva, meaning to try to when you give a pan, we ask the Rebbe for something, we have to be able to give our tshuva, means to come back, put ourselves, give ourselves, devote ourselves to do what the Rebbe wants of us, at least a basic feeling, an important feeling. There's also, of course, on the highest extreme, we find in Hayom Yom, where it speaks about a chassid prepared himself and brought the yechidus, or the connection, to be a pan too, with the Rebbe in a very deep level. And it says there that the Rebbe had gesagt that Ramesha Belenket was one of the greatest chassidim of the Alter Rebbe, and the Alter Rebbe said about him, Moshe hat mechen de gadlus. He has a very great intellect, and in the 10 years, in the 10 years that he worked hard, he worked out that he had mechen rechavim, very broad intellect. So what does it mean? How did he work 10 years? He worked 10 years to prepare himself to go into Yechidus with Alter Rebbe, and then he worked 7 years afterwards to bring what he got in Yechidus, the Pel in his life. This is, of course, the greatest Chassidim. We're not on that level, but just to know that whatever it is, even on our little, on our small level, we have to realize that we have to not just write a pan, but prepare ourselves and take the moment very, very seriously. And here is also something found in Sefer Minhagim, and it's page 86 in Sefer Minhagim. It says that the Rebbe Rashab said, it's certain that in the Yemei Hilula, the Rebbeim are Me'eri Rachmim, they awaken Hashem's compassion, Afal Chassidim, for all Chassidim, for their Weiber and Kinder, for their wives, their children, for everyone. The Rebbe on his Yom Hilula is Me'eri Rachmim for all Chassidim and for all the families. Abidos is Nor HaSedus Rachmim Klos. That's the general kind of Sedus Rachamim. Abid die Chassidim, the Chazen and Kavea, Yom Hilula al Limud, the Chassidim Shvabrengen. The Chassidim not just depend on it to happen from above, but they set aside the Yom Hilula to be a day of learning especially the Rebbe's Teres, and have a Chassidish Verbringen. Das is der Pidyon Nefesh, was Chassidim the lang in the Bal Hilula. So that's a spiritual pan, and obviously that's also part of the pan. When we give a pan, we write our names, we also have to ourselves. So spending the day also, he says, with learning the Torah of the Rebbe, and having Chassidish Verbringen, and singing Nigun, all these things are part of what brings it b'peil. Now, there's something more I'd like to speak about when it comes to a pan. You have to speak about that when it comes to going to Yechidus and to writing a pan, to being close to the Rebbe. One of the important and basic things for us to know is that at that moment, all pitchkis, all chitzenius, all external things are nothing. We stand before the Rebbe, we stand with emes. This is the one place that everything is truth. I mean, both on the simplest level, which means that what we think we have inside of our minds, inside of our hearts, the Rebbe sees right through us. We know that. We know, all of us, the Shluchim know, when we got the Maimed V'Shavti V'Sholem, the Rebbe gave it to all Shluchim. The Rebbe didn't say anything. He gave it to each of us. We came up on the platform the Rebbe was standing, and he looked at us. I remember the Rebbe, other people told me the same feeling. You felt like you're being x-rayed through and through, just quiet, and with the Rebbe's eyes, penetrating eyes, he looked right through you, and it was shashtil. For me, it felt like who knows how long. It was actually just very shortly, but it was an experience that shook us to the core. But in general, I mean, that's not what a Rebbe is, much more than that, but this is just in a simple level. And we know, an example, my father told me that once there was a bunch of Vechom, he was standing around the Frierdiker Rebbe, and Frierdiker Rebbe asked that, he said, he begged that, please, you're standing here, please be more careful about what you're thinking. which means he told them openly that he senses their thoughts, and someone had some thoughts that he felt uncomfortable with. There's many stories like that. My Zayda, Rebbe Jacobson, told me that the Rebbe Rashab said, it's not a big thing to be a der machshavas, to sense someone else's thoughts. He says if you have a zichach hamachshav, if your mind is pure, so it's like a mirror. It's clapped up. It reflects the thoughts of everyone around you, and that's even when something is when the Rebbe is right there, but even when we're not there in front of the Rebbe. Even this story is a famous story about Rabbi Mendel Futterfass, who I heard it from him when he first came out of Russia. He came to 770. He was standing at our table, we learned, and he told the story later. It's printed. People know the story about the way he was in Russia, and it was very difficult for him. And he wanted to write a pandan to the Frierdiker Rebbe, and he couldn't. So he thought in his mind, he imagined standing before the Frierdiker Rebbe writing a pan. And when he came out much, much later, this was years and years later. So in England, he found out from his family, his wife had received a letter from the Frierdiker Rebbe, and it said, in answer to your mivrak, to the telegram that you sent. And they wondered, how could he send a telegram? He was deep in Russia and tortured in prison. And they realized that the mivrak was the thought. So that's for certain that the Rebbe reads thoughts, but that's not all. A Rebbe is a Rebbe. The Rebbe means that he sees into our neshama, into the premise of the neshama, into the Atzma neshama, and all superficial things are nothing. And when we write a pan, we have to feel that it's time to shed away all the nadishkeit and all the emptiness. And this is the point where we face the emes lamite. We say that Yechidus is also putting together Yechid of the neshama, together the Yechid, the Rebbe's Yechid of all Yidden. But when you know it, on Nilav Yom Kippur, the person that Yid is supposed to be with emes and all the outside layers of the neshama fall away are not important. So when you write a pan and Yechidus, that's a moment that a chassid can't stand. You have to feel that it touches you very, very deeply. So this is, and then I wanted to speak a little bit about some more details of how we write a pan. Now, when we write a pan, years ago, what was very much common was that people would write a pan with the words like this. People would write whatever it is, and they would write then which means that people wrote, because there was people who argued that it's not proper to write a pan to somebody who is not Nelam Haza Begashmis, to write on a kaver, to write a pan. So they would quote from Mari Bruna, who was one of the famous early Achrenim, and he writes that it's okay, just like we say in the Slichais, Machnise Rachamim. We know that Tzemach Tzedek has a bit about this in Derech Mitzvah Secha. We say Machnise Rachamim, and we're not Chas v'Shalom speaking to the Malachim, to asking them to give us something, we're asking them to be our Shliach to ask the Eibashter. The Tzemach Tzedek brings this Al Derech there also. And of course, by a Rebbe, there's much more reason, because there's some Sefer that Rebbe once quoted as well. There's some Sefer says that a Rebbe is not, it's like Chassidim are all like one Muhus, and the Rebbe is a Mutzah Mechab and not a Mafsik, whatever it is. So the Rebbe writes about, and then there's also a long tshuva of Minchas HaLazar, I think it's Samaches, where he writes about all the Mekedes and Chazal for writing Panim. But the bottom line is the Rebbe says that all of this, he says, I would have the Koyach that Rebbe writes, he would mevatel this whole nusach. He says to write, and then in a pan you're writing to the Rebbe. You're not writing. It's not a place to write in for a shalos tshuvas about what the heter is, or why you should be allowed, or whatever it is. This is not the place for it. So that for sure is mevatel. And then the Rebbe says even the words Mker harachamim, he would also be mevatel, because he says, what do you have to give the Rebbe an address that he should be meir rachmim from makir harachamim? Maybe the Rebbe wants to go higher than makir harachamim. Wherever he wants to go, it's not our business. So this is what the Rebbe said. And from then on, Chassidim stopped writing Mker harachamim, even though we have the text that the Rebbe himself wrote when he wrote a pan. And if you look in Eitzid Minhagim from Munstein, look at the end of the Sefer, you could find there is a text of the Rebbe's own panim. And the Rebbe writes also, he doesn't write this whole thing about Shuvas Mariva, because told the Rebbe was not good for Gamri. But he wrote, for whatever reason, but the Rebbe writes here and says in the Sikhet, even though the Friedrich Rebbe did write from Kerharachimim, but he says that was for the Friedrich Rebbe, we don't have to copy him. We're writing for the Rebbe, let him choose where he wants. And so the fact that the Rebbe wrote in his own pan, when he wrote to the Friedrich Rebbe, we see clear the Rebbe is saying that's Rebbe Shesach, if he wants to have Mekere Rachmim, but we have to go, we need sometimes higher than Mekere Rachmim, and let the Rebbe decide what to write, so we don't write that. Furthermore, in the text that you write after that, so people would write, the standard thing is Avur, Avuri, Avurdem, Adriyanim, and that's where I was taught too. But interesting, we see that the Rebbe writes not the word Avur, but the word Olai, for me. And actually, al pi diktuk, it seems there's a big difference, because the Rebbe is me'er rachmim, you're me'er rachmim on someone. Avur means where there is an intermediary, somebody else. So actually, I see here it's quoted in from Ginsburg, he has in his Minhagim, from Level Groner, that he said that when you're asking for yourself, you write Olai, but if you're asking for someone else, another yid, then you say Avur, because then you're asking for somebody else. But actually, it's very, if we take a look at the Rebbe's own nusach in his own panim, we see that he writes also, not just for himself, but also for others, he uses the same word al. He writes, and he writes Olai, and he writes his name, and then he writes also, al, this person, and he mentions different kinds of people, and he writes al by all of them. So we don't have to ask for the Rebbe to kind of be asking, like someone asking for another party. The Rebbe asks directly, and it's clear from the Rebbe we should use the word Olai, and al for whoever we're asking for. Furthermore, I've seen that some people write later Rachmim Rabim al Naran Chayshali, on Nefesh Ruach Neshama Chayichidashali. The Rebbe doesn't write such words. Could be the word Chassidim, that Ruchnistic Chassidim, they were interested in all these things we need, not just for our neshama things, but also our guf things, and for everything. And in fact, it's interesting. The Rebbe's pan himself also asks for parnasa and everything. The Rebbe asks for everything, both ruchnis and mekashmis. So the thing is that the less we try to eisfein and to try to we're not to tinker and to make it fancier and to make it more ruchnis, it's just plain. We have to write. In fact, the Rebbe wrote like that, just plain. And furthermore, some people write that at the end of the zettel of the pan, you should write hamatir. There was Betzach, the one who was begging for and you write your name. The Rebbe did not do that. He wrote his name at the end too, but he did not use the word hamatir. You don't write about yourself. You're writing what you want the Rebbe to write. So this is some things that we could learn from the nusach, from the text that we have here. Then there's also some other interesting things that we have, and that is that the Rebbe Rashab writes that when you write a pan, in Yonim Ruchnim, he says, don't write chisreinus about yourself. You only write that about the positive side. You write that this name, you'd like a bracha, this thing should become better. You don't write about the bad. And actually, we find this also in the Rebbe's letters that the Rebbe wrote. We find very much a similar kind of thing. The Rebbe writes, for an example, there's a letter you have in Igres, in Krach Dalit, in page Samach, page Shim Ches. So there he says that the Rebbe writes, someone is writing to him a pan, and he says that, he writes, it's very difficult for me, this pan as is, because you write that he's writing to a chassid that he said that if my son has to suffer chas v'shalom yisurim, I ask that I should be in his place. The Rebbe says this is not a way to write, it's not proper, that you're asking later rachmim b'rabim, which means that the yisurim will go away. So why are you going to have a cheshbon that someone have to be in exchange, someone should have to suffer this way, suffer that way? He says he asked the Rebbe could do it anyway, he could be made rachmim, whether it's al pi teva, shalom aleichem teva, whatever the Rebbe wants, he'll find a way to do it, and just rely on the Rebbe, don't make any cheshbonis. Then you have also, someone writes a pan that he should read to the Rebbe, that he should bring it to the Frierdiker Rebbe's ale. And he says that the Rebbe says, I can't read it the way you wrote it, because he wrote about people that you have problems from. So the Rebbe says, of the roof daftir das nutzen, he says that you have to use a pen to write that someone should be destroyed, chas v'sholem. So the roof soll the Frierdiker Rebbe sich abreißen von Gan Eden und wegen im Besen shel Meile beten. This and this Gewalt, all the Rebbe writes. So in other words, writing negative things is out of the question. And the Rebbe says, in general, I mean, the thing is that there's also, the Rebbe writes that when you have a chesaron from the Frierdiker Rebbe, that a chesaron that a person has, when you write in a pan, you don't emphasize a chesaron because in Ruchnius, when you write in a pan, everything becomes alive. And the chesaron that you write becomes a living thing. So a person should always focus on what you're asking a bracha for, what you want. You say to Rachmim and think positive, and the Rebbe will beten and is beten, and we'll have everything B'rachmim B'rabim, and cannot is gain from the years ago the Rebbe said, we right now, that the sof from Golas right nach Tunkel nach Mer und Mer. So then was a cheshach kaf mechubel. The world is now in a big cheshach, but hopefully we're going to come right out, and they will give them. The Rebbe will make Rachmim sein, was all that is from Nalin Yonim to the Gula Kriya.
In 1947, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Futterfass, a well-known chassid of the previous Rebbe and later of the Rebbe, was sentenced to 8 years in a Siberian gulag after being caught helping Jews escape from the Soviet Union. His ailing wife and 2 children managed to escape. Rabbi Yosef Yitzhak Liberov is his grandson.
I was once talking to my Zayda, and he told me a very interesting story that he had written a pidyon to the Rebbe b'machshava. And he got an answer from the Rebbe on that pidyon that he wrote b'machshava. Asked him to explain me exactly what that means. So he told me exactly the way he said it, that's the way it happened. When he came out of Russia in Tafshin Chav Daled, in the Kislev Tafshin Chav Daled, my grandmother had shown him all the letters that she had received for the whole period that she came out of Russia, and they were separated for the 17 years. They were separated, all the letters that she had received from the Frierdiker Rebbe, and none from the Rebbe. And this is a letter that they don't understand. The reason that she still put an emphasis on the thing that she doesn't understand what this letter was is because of what the letter had done to them when the letter first came. In other words, the excitement that this letter brought around was ein l'shayr, because knowing that the letters to my grandfather, and it says that hamivrech niskabel, that means he sent a telegram to the Rebbe. Otherwise, the Rebbe wouldn't write that the telegram was accepted. And how could he send a telegram if he was arrested and he's in jail in Russia? You can't even send it. It's just regular to send a telegram out of Russia to Schneerson would be one of the impossible things. And here they say he was caught, he was taken off the train, and he's in Russia, and he's in jail, and he's sending a telegram. It sounded very very modern, and they came to the conclusion that it looks like he did escape, and the information that's coming about his arrest is not 100%, and he is probably somewhere in those countries close to Russia, like all the rest of them. They were Poland. They were all refugees, all escaped from Russia, not legally, and they were in Poland or they were in Czechoslovakia at that time, Prague, and maybe he's also in one of these places, and he spotted the date of the letter. So he started thinking, where was he on that day? And from there, he reminded himself, Yud Zayin Iyar was the first day he was put into jail, after the interrogation, which went on for almost about a half a year. So Yud Zayin Iyar he already had his sentence, and he was sitting in his cell already. Being that the few months of interrogation, it was a very dangerous interrogation because he had to make sure not to give out information on other chassidim. So his head was constantly busy with what is he going to answer, and what is exactly going to be the next part of the interrogation, that he shouldn't make any mistakes and shouldn't bring about any problems to any other chassidim. So he had no time to think about himself, about his family. This is exactly the way he's telling me, that ich habe nicht gehabt keine Zeit zu trachten wegen keinem. Ich habe gedacht trachten die ganze Zeit, was entfällt dem nächsten Mal, was soll mir rufen. When he finally ended up in his sentence, that's when he says, "Hab ich gehabt Zeit, I had time." Now I started thinking about where am I, what's going on, where's my wife, where are my children, and starting to think about the family. That's when he started feeling his matzav, how bad the matzav is. And as he's thinking, he's thinking also how revival to you can schreiben dem Rebbe a brief und beten a brocha. This would be the best thing for me. As he's thinking, he reminds himself of the last time he saw the Frierdiker Rebbe. The last time he saw the Frierdiker Rebbe was Simchas Torah Tofreish Peiches. That was the Simchas Torah before the Frierdiker Rebbe, a few days before the Frierdiker Rebbe had left Russia to Riga, and he was in Leningrad. My grandfather was in Leningrad. He was still a bocher at that time. He was in Leningrad for Yontif, and he was by the Farbrengen of the Frierdiker Rebbe, and the Frierdiker Rebbe spoke about his leaving Russia and said, "If wir trachten wegen mir, wir trachten wegen euch." On Yud Zayin Yer, he was thinking about the Frierdiker Rebbe. He's thinking, he's writing an opinion, asking for a bracha, and on Yud Zayin Yer, the Frierdiker Rebbe is answering the letter, "Hamivrek Niskabel." He went on to tell me that a few weeks later he came to the Rebbe, Yitzhak Kislev, that year came to the Rebbe, which was about 2 weeks after he arrived from Russia, and the story was very, it was very excited. He was very excited about the story, but he wanted to make 100% sure that there's no mistakes over here. So he approached Chaim Lieberman, and he told Chaim Lieberman the whole story, and he asked Chaim Lieberman if he could check in the archives if he remembers something or not. Chaim Lieberman said he'll check it up, and he came back and he says, "I saw the copy of the letter. I remember specifically the Frierdiker Rebbe telling me this is what I should write and send it out." My grandfather was explaining to me how much Yechidus is not totally in the place and how much time it takes, as much as it's totally in the Chassid to the Rebbe, that if the Chassid is Mekusha to the Rebbe and he thinks about the Rebbe, so Yechidus could be so far away also.
When it comes to Gimmel Tammuz, obviously the focus has to be on our connection to the Rebbe. And that has many ways, many inyonim that bring us closer to the Rebbe. One of the most important things is concerning the Torah of the Rebbe, learning the Torah of the Rebbe. That's one of the first and foremost things that has to do with connecting to the Rebbe. So I want to discuss a little bit the union of learning the Rebbe's Torah from different angles. Obviously, the first thing is that this is the way to get niskasha, the first and foremost way to have hiskashas to the Rebbe. As the Rebbe writes in Hayom Yom, on the day of Tesa Sheni, he says, Geidel ha-tshukev lehiskashas, the great desire to have hiskashas, yochel hazbiya, you could satisfy it, rak kashe yilmed maimore achsidus shemer harav kesef, only if you learn the mamor achsidus that the Rebbe says, ki berias ponim bilvad le'sagi, because just to see the Rebbe is not enough. Then the Rebbe writes again, in the day of Chav Dalet Sivan, in Hayom Yom, he says, it's a letter of the Frierdiker Rebbe, Hasheil b'mahi iskasha shelei alai, me'achash ein ani makirei ponim. He's writing a letter to somebody saying, you're asking, what's your iskashas to me? How is your iskashas to me? Since I don't know you, I never saw you. So the Rebbe writes from the Frierdiker Rebbe's letter, Hiskashas hamitis ya limud ha-Torah. The real iskashas is the learning Torah. Kishehu loimed ha-maimorich chsidus sheli. When you learn the maimorich chsidus of me, my maimorim. Keres ha-siches, you read the siches. U'mischaberim yedidei anash v'talmidei atmimim yichyu b'limudim misvadusam. And you connect yourself to anash v'talmidei atmimim in the learning and in their fabrengens. U'mekayim bakashosi b'amir astilim v'shmir zmanei ane-limudim. And you fulfill my request to say tilim and keep the time of learning. B'zei ha-iskashas. That's iskashas. But the first thing that he mentions here is ha-iskashas ha-amitis hi ayidei limud ha-Torah, to learning Torah. There's another letter from the Frierdiker Rebbe from Reshchei Shriven Tovshin Beis, where the Lashon is similar. Ha-iskashas ha-amitis hi belimud ha-maimorim v'ha-kontreisim. The real iskashas is about learning the maimorim and the kontreisim. B'isvades ha-nasha yichya, in the fabrenges with hanash, or b'iseirer sa'ave, and awakening the love you have to the Rebbe. But here again, the first thing is the hiskashas ha'amitis is with learning the maimorim and the kontreisim, meanings learning the Torah of the Rebbe. So before I'm going to get into explaining a little bit more the specialty of the Torah of the Rebbe, I just want to focus a little bit on this, that the hiskasha is to learning the Rebbe's Torah. And it's obvious. Just like in the Eibishter, the first words, the word that the Eibishter said by Matan Torah, by the Aseret HaDibros, was Anochi Hashem Elikecha. The word Anochi, the Gemara says, is a Rosh Tevis, Anon Nafshik Sovis Yehovis, which simple pshat means, I myself gave it, I myself wrote it. But Chassidus has a deeper pshat, that means I myself put myself in, gave myself in, and wrote myself into the Torah. And therefore we say Takeh b'negei the Torah, that the Torah and the Eibishter is one. And therefore, in order to get connected to the Eibishter, you learn Torah of the Eibishter. The Medrash says, Tzadikim doimim lebeirom, that Tzadikim are similar to their Creator. So by Tzadikim is the same. The connection we have to the Tzadik is through the Torah. Why? Because the Tzadik put himself into the Torah. Lahavdil, even a regular non-Jewish author who writes Lahavdil, a book. So if he wants the book to be successful, he has to put himself into the book when he writes. Lahavdil. Same thing is in the good side, that the Rebbe, the Tzaddik, puts himself into the Sefer that he writes. And b'meila, when you learn his Torah, you connect yourself to him. So that's the first thing, b'negei, the union of learning the Rebbe's Torah, is that this is the real hiskashas to the Rebbe, just by learning the Rebbe's Torah. Especially after Gimmel Tammuz, when we don't see the Rebbe Begashmias, and many even were born after Gimmel Tammuz, that Begashmias, the Rebbe never even saw them, they never saw the Rebbe. So here it's even more important, this concept, that learning Torah of the Rebbe is the one that's going to connect you to the Rebbe, make the kesher, the iskashas to the Rebbe. As the Rebbe Rashab said, before he was nostalgic, he said, Ich gehe in Himmel und die Ksovim lo sich eich. I'm going to heaven, but my Ksovim, my writings, I'm leaving to you. Now, the Rebbe explains this, that l'chur, it's obvious, if he's going to Shamayim, obviously he's not taking along his Ksovim, so he's leaving the Ksovim down here for the people. What did he mean to say? So the Rebbe explains that what it meant to say is that even though ich gehe in Himmel, I'm going to heaven, I'm not going to be here begashmias, I'm still here. The ksovim lo zechaych. I'm leaving the ksovim here, so therefore I'm really not leaving you. I'm really going to be connected to you. If you learn my Torah, you will be connected to me. Now, the truth is you're connected to the Rebbe even after Gimmel Tammuz with other things too. Doing the Rebbe's pulas, doing miftzoyim, doing other things that we know connects us to the Rebbe. Nevertheless, what did he say? He said, "Iksovim lo zechaych," that there really is kashrus, the ikir is kashrus that you get, and especially after he said, "Ich gehe in Himmel," is through learning his Torah. And learning the Torah of the Rebbe, this is the Rebbe himself, as I said, because he put himself into it. We know, I could say that the Rebbe's Torah, the Siches, and the other Inyonim, the Maimorim, everything else, is, we could say now, the heart of Lubavitch. Even before Gimmel Tammuz, this was the heart of Lubavitch. How did you get the Rebbe's Inyonim? How did you give over to the people the Rebbe's Inyonim? All through the Rebbe's Torah. But certainly now, it's certainly that way. And especially that the Rebbe put himself into it so much. The Rebbe gave a lot of his time to these Inyonim, to the Yonim of his Torah. First of all, I'm talking physically now about the time. First of all, the Fabrengens, the Rebbe's of the Torah came from his Fabrengens. The Siches, the Mamorim, basically from the Fabrengens. This is hours and hours and hours that the Rebbe spent. He put his precious time into it. Then when it came to be Magia, the Siches or the Mamorim, he put in again time, a lot of time. I know that one of the Maskirim once told me that there was a certain week that the Rebbe spent 10 hours on being Magia, the Likud of that week. A lot of time. And by the Rebbe, every second was precious. We know that. We know what the Friedrich Rebbe said to Reb Shmuel. When the Rebbe davened for the Omen after his father, Tovshin Dalet, he would daven in the Bochrim's minyan. And sometimes the Bochrim would be a few minutes late, so the Rebbe had to wait. So the Friedrich Rebbe told Reb Shmuel, make sure, because he was the Hashvi'i of 770 of the yeshiva, make sure that the Bochrim come on time. My son-in-law shouldn't have to wait, because as you know, by him, a minut is ayor. A minute is like a whole year. I remember there was once an article written in the Allgemeine Journal by Reb Gershon Ber Jacobson about Lubavitch and about the Rebbe, and he gave it into the Rebbe to be Magia. In the article he wrote that by the Rebbe every minute and every second is precious. And when the Rebbe was Magia, he crossed out the word second, but he left the word minute. In other words, for that, he was made it to us that it's every minute. So by the Rebbe, every minute is special. I remember I was once standing outside 770 and I saw the Rebbe had opened his window, because sometimes the Rebbe would open the window if it get too hot. And the shade would move by the wind, so you could see inside. And I stood and I saw the Rebbe sitting very much in deep thought. I don't know if he was learning something or writing something, he couldn't see. And then, in a second, the Rebbe ran over, closed the window, walked out in a second, till we managed to leave, that the Rebbe shouldn't see us. The Rebbe was outside already, going home. He didn't waste a second. The Rebbe's time with everything else besides his own learning, which is most of the time, with the Mazdis, with the writing of the letters, all the things. So the Rebbe's every second is precious. And nevertheless, he gave all this time in order to be Magia, the Siches and the Mamorim, and also into writing the letters, how much time the Rebbe put into this. The Siches Rebbe was Magia twice, so it was so much time that the Rebbe spent. We know when, look at the Siches started, and it was the Rebbe, they gave in the Sicha to the Rebbe, Tovshin Yutches, and the Rebbe was Magiyat, so gave in again. So Rabbi Chadakov told the Bochrim who were involved that how could you expect the Rebbe to be Magiyat the Sichas when he has no time for this? And if he's going to take away time for this, he's going to have to take away time from answering letters to people, which is Pikuach Nefesh. And the Bochrim were smart enough, and the Bochrim said, but the Rebbe to be Magia, the Siches, is also Pekuach Nefesh. That's Pekuach Nefesh. Begashmi this is Pekuach Nefesh, Beruchnias. And it worked, and the Rebbe was Magia. And I'm sure the Rebbe didn't take away from answering the letters of which have to do with Pekuach Nefesh, with questions of operations, things like that. He for sure continued. So he took away time from his eating, from his sleeping. So the Rebbe put so much into it. So now the Rebbe put so much into it, he is in it. So by learning the Siches, we have the Rebbe. Like it says when the Eibishter, we take the Eibishter. So too is learning the Rebbe's Torah. That's the greatest connection that we could have to the Rebbe. And just like it says in Tanya, when the Geya learning Torah, that's the greatest connection we could have to the Eibishter. Because there's nothing that is so miyached, so united, as a seichel that is understood by a person in his brain. And therefore, if you understand the Eibishter's Torah, your brain becomes one with the Torah. And now, if it becomes one with the Torah, and the Torah and the Eibishter are one, you become one with the Eibishter. And the same thing, Tzadikim Demer El Beiram, as the Medrash says, if you learn the Rebbe's Torah and you understand it, you have it in your mind, you become united. Like it says, there's a Yichud Nifla, the greatest Yichud, that no other Yichud like that is in the world, it says in Tanya. No other union like that is in the world, like this, that when your brain understands something, so your brain becomes one with the Torah of the Rebbe, which is the Rebbe himself, because he put himself into the Torah. So that's the greatest way of Iskashus. But I want to mention something else. The uniqueness of the Rebbe's Torah. We know what it says in the Zohar, and the posik by Noach. Actually, it's a Zohar not in Parshas Noach. I think it's in Parshas Vayero, but it's quoting the posik that it says by Noach. The posik says, "B'shnas sheish mei shana l'chaya Noach," the year 600 from Noach's life, etc. Nifku kol mayones tehim rabba. All the wells, the springs from underground, split, and the water started coming up. Va'arubeis hashamayim niftochu, and the windows of the Shemayim opened up. And the Zohar says this means that it will come to the year Sheish Meis, the year 600, to the year 5,000, which means in the year 5,600, the Chochmeh will start coming up. Mayim represents Chochmeh. When the waters started coming up so much, say the waters from below, what it means is, say the Chochmes Umas Ha'olam, the Chochmes, the wisdom of the nations, the wisdoms of science, of other types of Chochmes other than Torah, which is the Chochmah of the ground, the Mayim of the underground, will come out. And as we see, Take, that around those times, that's when the Industrial Revolution with all the inventions came out to be, that the Chochmah of science started becoming much stronger. And when it says, Arubis Hashemayim Niftochu, and the windows of heaven will open up, means that in Torah it will happen. Because the water from above, that's Mayim al Yenim, that's the Torah. The Torah will become more begilui. And the Rebbe says that's what we see, that around that time was the Gilui of Chassidus, which is a Gilui in the Inyan of Torah, a new revelation in the Inyanim of Torah. So the Zohar says that that's going to happen. And this is all a hachonah to the coming of Mashiach. So we see there that the Inyan of the time of the Gilui Achsidus has to do with the opening up of the Arubis HaShamayim. Now this Inyan, the Rebbe says, is concerning Chassidus. Actually, the Rebbe says also concerning Nigla. The Rebbe once by Fabrengen said that we see that from around that time, the Derech HaLimud of Nigla became a little bit deeper and a little bit in a different way, more begilui, with more depth. And the Rebbe connected it to the Ragachover, the Derech HaLimud of the Ragachover, which went into the depth of everything. That is more begilui than even was before, that there should be some kind of Derech HaLimud that should go into the etzem of the understanding of the Svara. So that all fits to what the Zohar said is going to happen. Now, in that itself, it's obvious, since this is a hachonah to Mashiach, as it gets closer to Mashiach, that Gilui gets stronger and stronger. And that's why we find that B'negei the Rabbeim, from when the Gilui Achsidus started, the Rabbeim, each Rebbe, who is closer to Mashiach, was Mechadish and had more depth in the Inyonim of the Gilui of the Teres Achsidus. And that's why we say from one Rebbe to another, from the Alter Rebbe, and then the Mittel Rebbe came to Rebbe Rashab. It goes on further and further. So all the Rabbeim, as it gets more, there is more Gilui in the Inyonim of Chassidus, because this is all the Hachonah to Mashiach. Now, one of the Nekudas in the Hachonah to Mashiach is the Gilui of Achdas Hashem. And that's why it's Negei to Chassidus. When Mashiach will come, what's going to be? Mashiach will come, there will be, like the Pasuk says, V'niglo kaved Hashem v'ro kol bosar yardav kepi Hashem diber. The covet of Hashem will be revealed, and the whole earth, even bosar, even the flesh, will see the truth of Hashem. That's basically what it is. It says that the Eibusher will not be hidden anymore, not be concealed. There will be the Gilui of Achdas Hashem, which means everybody, everything in the world will recognize the unity of Hashem. That's going to be the Gilui of Mashiach. And therefore, before the Gilui of Mashiach B'Peil, it's already a beginning of the Gilui of Mashiach, and that is the union of Chassidus. What is Chassidus? Chassidus tells us, describes to us, explains to us, especially Chassidus Chabad, which brings it down into Seichel, the understanding of Einheit Milvadi, the understanding of nothing but Hashem, the Achdas of Hashem. That's what Chassidus is. And therefore, as it's getting closer to Mashiach, each Rebbe was Megala more in the union of Achdas Hashem. And that's what we find by the Rebbe. The Rebbe, who's the Deir Hashvi'i, which is the Deir that's going to bring down the Shechina, brought down the Shechina al-Mat, and this will bring the Gilui HaMashiach B'Peil. Like Moshe Rabbeinu, who was the Shvi, and he brought down the Shechina down here, like it says in the Pasuk Ligani from Medrash. So too by the Rebbe, the Shvi in Kol HaShvi in Chavivin, the one that brings down the Torah Olamata, that means it's Megala, the Achdas Havaya that's going to be Nizgala Mashiach will come, and started being Nizgala with the Gilui Achsidus, and it went stronger and stronger. By the Rebbe, it's the most. By the Rebbe, we see from his Pu'ulas, that's first of all, the whole Kavan of Gilui Mashiach is that the world, the whole Kol Bosar Yard of the world, should see the truth of Hashem. So by the Rebbe brought down Elokus, Yiddishkeit, which is mitzvah, Torah mitzvah, which is the Eibishter, and the Rebbe worked to bring it down to everybody, to the lowest people. The real Dire B'Tachteinim, which is the Gilui Elokus and the Tachteinim, by the Rebbe we see it with the Mivtzoim. And down, he brought it down to everybody and to things which till then, it didn't go that low. Why? Because this is the closer connection, the closer Hachonah to Mashiach. That's why the Rebbe went out even the union of spreading Zayim Mitzvahs B'nai Noach to the Goyim. Because it says, by Mashiach, there will be, for all Kol Bosar, every flesh, every human being will understand the Achdas Hashem. As a Hachonah to that, you got to get close to that. So even the Goyim have to recognize Hashem and have to do what Hashem wants of them, the Zayim Mitzvahs. And by the Rebbe, we see he pushed it. But besides, in the Pu'ulas, we see that also in the Rebbe's Torah. In the Rebbe's Torah, we see the Achdas in Torah. We know what it says in the Zohar, that there are three things that are connected. There is Yisrael, Eiraisa, V'Kutshabrichu. There are Yidden, and there is the Torah, and there is the Eibishter. And there is Havaya Echad, the Eibishter is one. Echad Yochid Yim Yuchid, the true one real being. So there's Achdas there, unity. In Torah, there's also Achdas, the unity of Torah. And among Yidden, there's Achdas. The Rebbe stressed so much the union of Achdas by Yidden, the union of being Mekar of every single Yid, which shows the Achdas by Yidden beyond, we could call it Giluyim. Even those people who don't deserve it, and people who are not the Gilui, Frum, and connected to the Eibishter. The Rebbe said you have to be Mekar of them also. You have to love them also. It all started through from the Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov said you have to love every single Yid. And as Reb Melech once told, I think the Alter Rebbe, that he heard from the Maggid, said that he made an announcement to Shemayim that real Ahavas Yisrael is to love a Rosh Gomer like you love a Tzadik Gomer. You have to love a real Rosh like a real Tzadik. Why? Because we're looking here on the Etzem of a Yid. The Etzem of a Yid is good by the biggest Rosh. We just got to be Megala it. So there's the Ahavas Yisrael, that's the Achdas of Yidden, which is the greatest Achonah to Mashiach, the Gilui of Achdas of the Eibishter, the Gilui of Achdas by Yidden, and the same thing, the Gilui of Achdas in Torah. The unity that's there in Torah. Because like this Torah looks like there's a lot of inyonim in Torah. So there's a ribui, there's a lot of inyonim. In truth is, there is Torah achas. There is one Torah. Now one Torah, people think means one Torah. No other Torah. The Eibusher gave us the Torah, and anybody else will give something else. It's not Torah. That's a simple pshat, but it's much deeper than that. Not only there's one Torah, there's no second Torah. Everything in the Torah is one. It's all one unity. Now, we don't see it l'chura. We see there's pshat, there's remesh, drush, sod, you have nigle, you have chassidus. But the truth is, it's not so. It's all one. There's one nekuda in the whole Torah. In Zohar, it says that the difference between pnimis and nigle is that pnimis HaTorah is called nishmosa deraisa, the neshama of the Torah, and nigle is called gufa deraisa, the body of the Torah. But the body and the neshama are one. By a living person, there's no two parts to it. There's one that's united. Really, they're one. And that's one of the things we see in the Rebbe's Torah. The sinyan of the Achdus that we find in Torah, we find in the Rebbe's Torah. First of all, in a lot of the Rebbe's Siches, Maimorim, we see this Nekuda where he explains this Nekuda of the Achdus in Torah. The Rebbe Bepel Mamesh mixed, so to speak, Nigla and Chassidus. In every Siche, you have Yonim al Penigla, and then you have together with it, and it's in one, not like two separate things that in one there's Ha'aras and Nigla and Chassidus, it's all one. This all brings out the Achdus of Torah from that aspect, that there is no such thing as two things, Nigla and Pnimius, and they're two separate things. They're not two separate things, they're one, and there you see how they all go together. And this is something we see by the Rebbe. It started actually, we see that by the Tzemach Tzedek also. But by the Rebbe, we see it maybe even more, it's hard to say, but we see this Nekuda that Nigla and Chassidus are really one. We see in the Rebbe's Torah, which is also the Deir Hashvi'i, which is the Deir of the Gilui HaMashiach that's going to happen very soon. So there's another Nekuda we see in the Rebbe's Torah. We see in the Rebbe's Torah the Emeskite of Torah. Like this, Torah, everyone knows, and we have Amunah, and there are people who have Amunah, the Torah came from the Eibush, they're fine. By the Rebbe, we see Big Gilui, which we don't see by previous Gdolim, the Emeskite of Torah. What do I mean by saying the Emeskite of Torah? By the Rebbe, we see how he's medayek in every little word, in every little expression that's there in Torah, which by other people we don't see it. And why is that? Because if this is emes is from beginning to end. There's no such thing as this part is emes, but the little expression is not so negay, so it's not so emes. Could have been different, that it doesn't have much of meaning. Emes is mitchilos aviyat seif. It says in Yerushalmi that the word emes is made up of three letters: Aleph, Mem, Sof. Aleph is the first letter of the Aleph base. Mem is the middle letter of the Aleph base. Sof is the last letter of the Aleph base. To tell you that emes is from beginning to end. There's no such thing as half of emes. So if Torah is emes, every little detail is emes. And not only the Torah shebiksav, which we know every word is exact. Torah shebal peh, Gemara, Mishnah Gemara, and also Svarim from Daily Yisrael, which is Torah. It can't be that it's not exact. Because if it's Torah, it's emes. So by the Rebbe we see diyukim, that he was ma'ik in small diyukim, which some people would even call it dikduke aniyas. Who cares about making such diyukim? By the Rebbe, we see he made these diyukim, and he built a whole pilpul. Al pi nigla and al pi chassidus sometimes, separately or together. He would build on small diyukim. This all shows, because by the Rebbe is already the way that we have to look at the Torah, is we have to look and recognize the emeskite of Torah. And that's why the Rebbe would be medayek in the Dibur HaMaschel. If Rashi brings in the Dibur HaMaschel in the beginning, Rashi brings a few words. So each word is medayek why he brings those words. Others would look at it. So Rashi would call it, it's not a big deal. But if you realize the emeskite of Torah, then you know that this is medayek. The Rebbe would be medayek in stories of Torah. Says every story of the Torah is emes. Now we know that says in the Zohar that the Zohar says if anybody thinks that the Torah stories are stam stories of history, the Zohar says terrible things about such a person. So it started from the Zohar. But b'chal, everything that we have in Chassidus is nothing new. You can't be mechadish anything. Torah was given. But there are certain things that are not stressed. And we see that Chassidus stressed it. So in this case also, this is by the Rebbe, it's so true, and we see it kipshutei. So derech, like it says in Shariach v'Amunah, we know that Leilam Hashem Dorach Nitzav Hashemayim. It says in the pasuk, Hashem, your words always stand in Shemayim, and he teaches Pirush Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov explained that it means that Hashem's words that he said when he created the world, Asara Mamoris, is continuously happening. He's mechadish every second, mechadish the world. And the question is, it's not a word of the Baal Shem Tov, it's in the Medrash. The Medrash Tilim says this pshat in the pasuk. So the Rebbe says, it doesn't mean Pirush Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov was the one that explained it, gave the pshat. Pirush means he spread it out. The Baal Shem Tov stressed it. He didn't mechadish new things. Ein hanovi rashoy chadash dover. Even the novi can't make anything new. But stressing things which are important, because this is going to be the Gilui when Mashiach will come. To understand this Nekuda, that Hashem is Mechadesh B'Tuvei, every second recreates the world, that's going to be Begilu and Mashiach will come. So the Baal Shem Tov already started stressing it. The same thing here, but again, the Emeskite of Torah. Ad kedekach, ekosal kadaitach Torah. A havamini in Torah. The Rebbe's Medayik, he says, builds binyonim and buildings on top of that to understand the havamina. Because if it's written in Torah, if it's written in the Gemara, it's true. Now we have other people also understand that. But by the Rebbe, this is a major part in the Rebbe's Torah. The fact that whenever there are a few pshatim on one inyan, the Rebbe says they have connection. Because if they're in one inyan, it has to be connected. So this all brings out the emskite of Torah, which is connected to the avdas of Torah. The unity. Every word of Torah is the etzem of the Eibishter, so every word of Torah is the Eibishter, and every word of Torah is exact. And that's what we see in the Rebbe's Torah. We see it from another angle. In the Rebbe's Torah, Poshet, let's go in the Nigla part even, we see the Nekuda of Achdus and Torah. The Rebbe many times would explain V'shetosayu. He would explain how we have different sugyas in Gemara, and he connects that the people who argue in this sugya goes along with the same svara as they argue in a complete different sugya altogether. Now we have a lot of others also go to Shitosam, but by the Rebbe it was a major thing to show how even though the two sugyas are far apart, they're really connected. Because in truth, as I said, there is only one nekuda in Torah. I would even like to say that in Torah, there is one svara. Even the seichel of Torah. There is one svara in Torah. All other pratim of Torah are histaifos. They come out, as so to speak, as an offspring of that one svara. Just like in mitzvahs. Mitzvahs are also achdus. There's one mitzvah. The mitzvah is Anochi Avai Elekecha. That first mitzvah, I am Hashem your God. All our mitzvahs come out of it. Why? Because there is achdus. There's one Eibishter, and there's one nekuda of mitzvahs, and that breaks up into many details. Same thing with Torah. There is be'etzem one svara in Torah, and that svara comes out into many, many details. And the Rebbe spoke about the Rogatchover, that what the Rogatchover did, he took the whole Torah and broke it up into 10, 15 svaras. He has certain klolim, certain nekudas of seichel, and most of the yom in Torah are connected to these svaras. Now, he didn't go all the way to them, but there must be, that it goes back to one svara, and there's a nekuda of achdus in Torah, that there's one nekuda and everything comes from that. It's in an abstract way, it's in higher worlds, and from that it comes down. And by the Rebbe, we see that. We see in the Derech Halimut of the Rebbe that in Nigla, I'm talking about in Nigla now, that he reached the tamtzis when he speaks about a sugya. If you look through it, he goes into the depth, into the nekuda of the sugya, and because of that, many, many sugyas go together and become one. And this all we do not really find by the previous Rebbeim, by other people. By the Rebbe we see this. So this is all connected to this nekuda, that by the Rebbe, his Torah being the Hashvi'i is the Torah that has to do with the last hachana to the coming of Mashiach. And that's why the derech of the Rebbe is this. And we find the nekuda, another nekuda, the inyan of dire betachtonim. If a person goes through the Rebbe's sichos and the Rebbe's memorim, I don't know if everyone or almost every one of those deals with one nekuda. The chibur of Elyon betachten. You see there, the nekuda the Rebbe stresses the connection between the highest and the lowest, and bringing down from Asmas Sof all the way down to Lamata, and connecting the Mata to the Mailo, and all of them, a lot of Sichas Amorim. This is in the Nekuda. Why? Because this is in the Nekuda that's going to be when Mashiach will come. There will be the connection of the Mailo and Mata, the connection of the Welt with the Eibishter, and the Gilui of the Eibishter in Welt, the real Dire B'Tachtenim. And that Nekuda of Dire B'Tachtenim is the major focus in the Rebbe's Torah. The major focus. It's in Chassidus B'chlal, obviously. I'm not saying Chas v'Sholom not. But so much, like the Rebbe puts the emphasis on Dire B'Tachtenim, is more than the other Rebbeim from before. I heard once, and I don't know how true it is, that there's one of the people who was a Litvisher, became a Lubavitcher. So the Rebbe once asked him, what is the Nekuda? What did people have against me? What is the tainas they have? So he said to the Rebbe, what came to his mind, two tainas. One, how come the Rebbe doesn't do anything together with other of the Litvish Gdolim? He does everything himself, whatever he decides, everything. He doesn't mix with them, doesn't go with them, doesn't get advice from them, doesn't have meetings with them. And the second thing is, the Rebbe took a medrash. One medrash, there are thousands of medrashim. One medrash says, Nisava Kadosh Baruch Hu liyis le'dira b'tachteinim. And from that, he made a fuss, he built up the whole thing, everything. They don't understand that. So the Rebbe said to him, this is the way they say, that one kasha answers the other. The second kasha answers the first. The first kasha was why he doesn't mix with others. People who don't understand the major nakuda in dira b'tachteinim, what could I do with them? How could I get involved in them? And it makes sense logically also. Imagine if the Rebbe would discuss with the others about miftzoyim. And what's miftzoyim? Bringing a lakus to a yid for one mitzvah. If you don't have the concept of dira b'tachteinim, you ain't going to go for that. But whether the mice is true or not, I think it is, but whether it's true or not, then the word is the word. So, you see that in the Rebbe's Torah. It's all because of this, because the Rebbe's Torah in Nigle, the Rebbe's Torah in Chassidus is besides the great ge'enes that's there and the great depth that's there, pushed in lomdus, in learning, and when you learn it, you makayim the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. And this is kashrus, as I said before. The Torah is very unique that it has this real hachonah to the coming of Mashiach. The achdus and the emeskite of Torah is so begili. And you see a lot of things in the Rebbe's Torah. For instance, when it talks there about a tzaddik, the way the Rebbe looks at the tzaddik, at the ovis, I'm not talking stam tzaddik as we call it tzaddik, the ovis, Moshe Rabbeinu. The Rebbe brings out the emeskite, what it means, Moshe Rabbeinu in his highest madreges. He's not shaykhs to do an avera and all kinds of things. The kedusha of Torah that we see in the Rebbe's words is something that's very unique. It all fits in this whole thing. And this all is besides the fact that if you learn the Rebbe's Torah and you know it, you know what happens? You become a maskel in Chassidus, because there's so many hasboras there in Chassidus. You become a goen and learn nigla. There's so much nigla there. You get a different outlook on a yontif. When it comes to yontif and you learn the Rebbe's Torah, you have a different outlook on every yontif, any yom de pagre. You have a different outlook on mitzvahs. But if you learn Chassidus and Pnimis HaTorah, you get a different outlook. But the Rebbe takes it and brings it down to very simple ways, simple terms, that it's understood even for Anoshim Kerakenu, that we could also understand looking at the Yontev and the mitzvah in a more spiritual way and having the truth of it, more the Eibishter in it, more than the act itself. And we get Bichlal answers on questions in Hashkofe and questions in Amunah that is brought down to people like us. Now I have to tell you a story. A few years ago, they had in Kvar Chabad, in Eretz Yisrael, they had a whole big gathering because they printed then the Eitzel Lekutei Sichos, whatever. And I went down to speak there. On the way going in the plane, I met a young man, Chassidish young man, not a Lubavitcher. But I was talking to him. Looks like a fine edel young man, Chassidish young man, Polish Chassid. And he tells me, you know, Til Chav Zayin Noder, I used to come for a few years every day to 770 to one of the davenings to look at the Rebbe, sometimes twice a day. And he said, not because I'm a Lubavitcher. I'm not a Lubavitcher. I never became a Lubavitcher. I never wrote to the Rebbe. But I came to look at the Rebbe every day. So I said, why? So he said like this. As I was a bocher, certain sveikes things came to my mind. He was a frummer, Chassidish bocher, but came to my mind, questions. And then I got married and the questions were bothering me. And I was really afraid that they're taking me down. For one day I was sitting in Shul B'Tim Mincha Ma'ariv, waiting, people waiting for Ma'ariv, so there's Svarim on the table, so I picked up a sefer just to look at it. I gave a look, what is it? Called Lekutei Sichos from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. I opened it up, he said. And I opened it up and I started reading it. And the Rebbe was dealing and explaining, mamish, one of the questions that I had, a question that I had in Sveikis and Amunah things. Never heard such an explanation. And I started learning more and reading more. And then I got more every day. I never saw, he said, anybody discussing these things with such clear explanations that takes away all the speakers. And I have to thank the Rebbe for my life, ruchnistic life. If not for that, I would have been gone down. And I came every day to look at the Rebbe. Because when you learn the Rebbe's Torah from the Maimorim, but even more in the Sichos, because the Maimorim is in the Sprach of Chassidus, very deep. But this is in Sprach of Chassidus, but brought down to us that we're able to take it, because before Mashiach, we have to be the ones that's a choplegen the Emunah. And the hashkafa and inyonim of the Welt and everything else is completely different if you learn the Rebbe's Torah, you learn Likutei Sichos. And this is not only Menegei Likutei Sichos. Like the Rebbe, we have Likutei Sichos, which is 39 volumes. The Rebbe's Magia. Then you have the Sefer HaSichos from the years later, Mem Zayin till Nun Beis. You have the Rebbe's letters, which is a inyan in itself. Where in the Rebbe's letters you have, I don't know if there's anybody else who has that thing. We have so many volumes now that the Rebbe discusses every subject possible. Inyonim in learning with Mamish Havrokis, such great svaras and great inyonim in Torah in learning, in Igla and Chassidus. And then you have Eitzes in Advedas Hashem, Hadrochas in Hashem. Eitzes in every subject I could imagine. And there also it is because something that has everything in it, because it's all Teirachas. It's all one thing, and this is a one person that contained everything and was giving us everything. You have the Rishimas that the Rebbe wrote all through the years. And then they printed, the Rebbe wrote the Bekitzer, basically wrote it for himself, but you have that. But when you have that, all of this, what you get is, you get a different look. So the Rebbe's Torah is not just like, a lot of people write Svarim, let's say, Chassidish Svarim, I feel it. So on the Parsha, there's a Kasha, and there's a Teretz, a nice Teretz, a good beer, Geshmaki beer. Like the Rebbe, everyone is a new Gedaink, a new Geder in Inyonim that give us a new light on things. So we could say by the Rebbe, Eir Chodesh Al Tzion Torah, like it's a new light, a new Chidush that was Nizgale with the Torah of the Rebbe. The Rashas of the Rebbe. This is some mamish a gilui that you can't imagine. So a new derech in learning Rashi. And it's all based on the fact that Rashi writes, Anili Bosi Elu Pshuta Shel Mikra. I came just for Pshat. So by the Rebbe, if the Rashi says I came just for Pshat, it is just for Pshat. And the Rebbe explains Rashi just Pshat with all the klolim that the Rebbe has in how you learn Rashi. Every word in the Rashi is meduyik. And we see another thing. The Rebbe in the learning of the Rashis, the Rebbe would say Pshat in Rashi according to Pshuta Shel Mikra, and then the Rebbe would explain, not mamish in every sikha, but kemat, the Yena Shel Torah, which he called, which is the Chassidus. And the Rebbe in the beginning, when he started teaching Rashi Tov Shechavhei, he explained that we have Pshat, Remes, Drush, Sod. Pshat is connected Elam HaAsiyah, Sod is connected Elam HaTzilus. No Tchilos and Beseif on the top and the bottom are connected, so Atzilus and Asiyah are connected. That's why in every Rashi, you have Yena Shel Torah. Every Rashi, which is Pshuta Shel Mikra, but it also has Chassidus in it as Yena Shel Torah. And the Rebbe says, Remes and Drush love Dafke, not always, but Chassidus, Pnimis HaTorah, that's in every Rashi. And the Rebbe was Megala that. Till then, it wasn't so big deal. It definitely wasn't a Derech HaLimud. And the Rebbe was Megala that. The connection of in Pshat, you have the deepest inyonim in Chassidus, which is connected to the whole inyan of Dire B'Tachteinim. You have the highest and the lowest, and connected. So fits to the Rebbe's inyan of connecting the Maila and the Mata, as I said before. All we see this in the Rashi. And this is the Gilui in the Rebbe's Torah. The truth is that the Rebbe's father would a lot of times explain a Rashi of Yena Shel Torah. I heard from my Zayde, Reb Zalma Velenkin, who was the Rebbe's Malamed, lived obviously in Katrinaslav. So he remembers that he was sitting once by the Rebbe's father's Fabrengen or a Shir or something, I don't remember. And the Rebbe's father explained the Rashi, Al Pi Kabbalah, Poshet, the whole thing Al Pi Kabbalah. And someone asked him, do you really think that Rashi, when he wrote this pshat, he had this in mind that you're writing? So his father answered, maybe, but even if not, since Rashi wrote Baruch HaKodesh, it's there. And the Rebbe was Megala this, that in every Rashi there is Primus Torah, but it all fits again to the inyan of the Torah is Torah Achas. It's all one Torah. It's a Torah that is one, and they're all connected. Not just that's one Torah, no other Torah. They're all connected. That we see here. So the bottom line is, after everything is said and done, the Rebbe's Torah is so special. And it's very important to focus on learning the Rebbe's Torah. When it comes to Gimmel Tammuz, to focus on being machlit, making chachlotes, taking resolutions to add in studying the Rebbe's Torah, and not just learning to be Yetzer, but to learn to understand it. It should be in our mind, and then we are united with the Rebbe's Torah. And it has all these great qualities. First, the quality of his kashrus. You become one with the Torah of the Rebbe if you understand it in your mind, which means you become one with the Rebbe. There's the greatest discussions like the Rebbe brings on Yom Yom, the letters from Friedrich Rebbe, learning Torah. The Rebbe told us on Yechidus to people that you become one with the Rebbe. That's the greatest discussions. But besides that, this is already learning things which is the greatest hachonah to Mashiach. That's why this is in Torah Hashvi'i. This brings out the truth of Torah. It shows us the emeskite of Torah. It shows us the achdus of Torah. And it shows us also, if you learn the Rebbe Sichas and Maimorim, you understand was is Ayid. Was is a neshama. Because in the Rebbe Sichas, we learn what the mile of a neshama is. Even though it's from Tanya, in Tanya it says a neshama is a chelik alekam mal mamish, but in the Rebbe Sichas, it is stressed very much. It's like I said before, when the Alter Rebbe writes in Shara Yichad V'Amunah and the Baal Shem Tov, Pirush Baal Shem Tov, the union that Hashem recreates the world every moment. Really, it's not from the Baal Shem Tov, as I said, it's from Medrash, but Pirush Baal Shem Tov spread it out. Same thing, the Rebbe spread out, brought into our understanding and our feeling and our outlook what a neshama is, and a neshama is a chayil k'kamal mamish. That's what a yid is. That's how you have to look at a yid. I'd like to finish off with a story that I heard. I don't know if it's so true, but I assume it is. That once there was a chassid from another Rebbe that came to the Rebbe on Yechidus for a bracha. Before he left, the Rebbe said to him, "Can you repeat to me a dvar Torah, something that your Rebbe said lately?" So he said, "Yes." So my Rebbe asked Akasha. The Gemara says that afilu peisha Yisrael mleim mitzvahs kerimin. That even the Pesha Yisrael, which is an expression for Yidden who are not good or not frum, are also full of mitzvahs like a pomegranate is full of seeds. And he says, my Rebbe asked, if they're Pesha Yisrael, how could you say that they're full of mitzvahs kerimin? And the Rebbe said, I have the same question, but a little bit different. The opposite. If it says that they're full of mitzvahs kerimin, why can you refer to them, how can you refer to them as Pesha Yisrael? Because the Rebbe's outlook on a Yid, every Yid is neshama, that's the ikar part of the Yid is the neshama. And that is also part of our achonah to Mashiach. When Mashiach will come, will be nizgale to everybody. We will see what a Yiddish neshama is, no matter what it's a chelik kal mal mamish. And in the Rebbe's Torah now, we already learn about it very much, even though it's taken from Chassidus, taken from Tanya, but the Rebbe was megale it so much and brought it into the understanding of the people, and that's the hachonah to what we'll feel when Mashiach will come. So the bottom line is that we have to make on Gimmel Tammuz a hachlote to learn more the Rebbe's Torah, and we'll have all the great miles we said before in learning the Rebbe's Torah. This is the union of Achdus and the union of seeing the emeskite of Torah, and this will be Nizgal of Mashiach will come. Plus, there is also a gishmak, poshet in learning the Rebbe's Torah. It's so gishmak that even the Nefesh HaBahamis could enjoy it. That's not the reason why we should do it. We should do it because this is Iskashas, this is learning Torah, and this is a hachonah to coming to Mashiach. And if we make such a hachlote, then this will bring us that we will make the coming of Mashiach closer, and he'll come b'meira b'yameinu b'korev mamish.
Tzoma lecho nafshi, koma lecho besori, be'yeretz Zion ve'yoye beni moyi. La la
Vechom
Tomalecho nafshi, komalecho besori, beyeretz Zion.